Hello, everybody, and welcome to the True North Audio Podcast. I am your host, Kiko. Joining me today, we have returning guest, Vasily.
Hello.
And new guest, Clara.
Hi.
From Peak Divide. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Good to see you again.
Well, thank you for having us. We're actually recording this in Clara's wonderful little studio living room right now.
Sort of wonderful. It's very makeshift DIY, just like smallest writing space you can imagine, but it's where I make my music right now.
It may be small, but you do have a little more space than I do at the moment, so I am still jealous of you regardless.
Sorry for the mic noises, still adjusting things, but yeah, it's a extraordinarily comfortable environment, and I'm glad you've made something out of it. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I don't have a couch in my studio.
Yeah, that's true. We have Vasily and Kiko sitting on a very, very nice couch. Well, it's not very nice. It's
the nicest.
It's pretty nice.
Actually.
It's decent. Yeah.
It's
yeah.
comfy.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you are
that.
comfy.
I like the extra shelf space.
Rad.
So I'm just adjusting the mic here because it's like looking like the stand is going to tip over at any moment here.
It is a cheaper stand, so it could be pretty dumb.
Okay, well, I'm just going to hope that this position works for the rest of the episode. So.
All right. So welcome back to the show. I figured we talk a little bit about the game you guys have been doing the soundtrack for.
Wait, we're making a soundtrack?
Whoa!
You didn't tell me, Vasily.
Surprise! It wasn't an EP. It's for a video game.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, well, where do you want us to start? Like, kind of the chronological, like, story of how we got into the, mix, like, because that's its own segment. Okay, well,
Look,
Clara, you
where
kind of
did you meet?
Well, okay.
How did this start? Where did you get to where you are now?
We're gonna do the whole story. Okay, so.
Oh, shit.
Okay, well, Clara and I initially met in 6th grade in 2006 or late 2005.
Yeah.
And we had a couple classes together. We weren't super close. And then, we had a couple like
My first memory, of you is you arguing with one of your friends about RuneScape.
Yep, that's that sounds like me. That's I'm
Classic.
still in character. Yep. And and so we had a couple PE classes together, and really the music stuff didn't really start happening until high school, because I noticed Clara would be on I don't know if it was GarageBand or Logic at the time.
It was GarageBand, I think.
GarageBand, yeah. And you would just be making little tunes, and I'll be like, hey, I have because we would take percussion together at that time.
Mm-hmm. That's actually how
all of us met.
That's actually how all of us met. For background context, we actually all went to school together and shared the percussion ensemble.
Yeah.
Good times of having sticks thrown at us.
Yeah, plenty of sticks thrown. So,
look, you gotta make sure that you actually have fresh trash practiced and learned.
Oh
God, you're gonna bring that up now?
PTSD.
Jesus.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure I remember you two actually having your parts down. So
I tried.
It was
my
like
best.
half of it. It was like one half. I know this, and then there was one point of the song where I was just like, I'm just gonna drum and hope I'm right.
Yeah, the first 75% I was like pretty confident, and then the last 25% and I was like, yep, I didn't do my homework.
Yeah.
the best part about that is the teacher forced us to play that at the concert, even though most of the class had not learned it. And you could tell, it was great. You could tell like the first like 8 bars, everyone knew where they were. Then the next like 32 bars, nobody knew where they were. And then the last bar, everybody knew where they were, so it was just like.
I mean, as long as you know the start and the end, nobody will remember the middle, so it's fine.
It's like jazz.
Yeah.
All right, tangent. Where were we?
So we all met in percussion class, and we had I don't know if any of us took music theory together, right?
I don't. I took the music theory, but I think I took it a different year than you.
Okay, that's
maybe?
right. Okay,
Yeah.
so I took regular music theory. Clara took.
I took AP.
Yeah,
I took AP as well.
You both took AP. Okay,
Okay,
I did not.
guess I didn't know you took AP. That's cool.
Yeah, I ended up actually getting pulled out of it to be put into another study hall, unfortunately.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
I still kind of continued the studies on my own. I didn't get the credit, but I did go to college. I didn't go to college, so it didn't matter. I learned.
Yeah.
I know some music theory. I have a
The learning is
basic
important.
grasp of microtonal systems and stuff. So,
Hell yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, fuck college anyway, so
yeah.
But during percussion class, Clara and I wanted, we kind of grew close musically together because we gelled together with. I had my chaotic and sporadic ways of like implementing ideas into a song, where Clara knew a lot of the theory and live playing, and so we kind of gelled together. Where I was shotgunning ideas and putting down synth and melody ideas, and Clara would kind of like glue it together, and it worked really, really well. And we had that really good dynamic going on.
You have a very good way of like coming up with ideas that I don't think anybody else would like come up with. Like I specifically remember one time where we were working. I don't remember what song we were working on, but we were just like doing like we were just throwing every single idea at the wall, and then you just started like playing like dumb shit on the piano. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, play that again. We recorded it, and then we like started to get progress on the song again. It's just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, there you go.
And it's I don't have the strongest I don't have the strongest piano playing, right? I'm not practicing every day. I don't have the strongest sense of theory or chord progressions, but what I do understand is like how I want a idea to be progressed. And if I hear potential in a song, I'm going to be extraordinarily stubborn on finishing that idea on a collaborative project. It's much different on my solo projects.
Yeah, you have good instincts is what you have.
Oh, thank you. And you have you're very practiced, and so I enjoy working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you two complement each other very well.
Yeah, and I think it's worked out. And it's during when I was in college, I was actually pursuing more musical ideas. At the time, I was using a cracked version of FL Studio, and Claire was like, "Hey."
So just a version of FL Studio.
Yeah. Everybody's first version of FL Studio.
I don't think there's such thing as a legal version. I think it can only be cracked.
So for my 20th birthday, I remember my mom got me a legal version of Ableton Live, and I was so excited for that.
I remember clapping. It's like, oh my God, you have it, yay.
And it was the most like the way that she presented the gift. It was a receipt from Guitar Center specifically with like a student discount. And it's just like this paper bag with a receipt, and I'm like, what is this? And I look at it and I just start screaming. I'm like, I'm so excited about getting this fucking DAW. It's like,
yeah.
And like for ever since then, it's just been like idea after idea. And then I remember having my Yamaha MM8, bringing it over to your old place, Clara. And we would jam, and we would always want to make like pendulum-esque songs, which never happened. That never happened.
Yeah. We were obsessed with drum and bass like for a long time.
Yeah, we wanted... before it was Peak Divide, we had Avalanche, which we initially wanted to be like a drum and bass project, but it kind of was just...
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
And it was mostly just kind of a shitposty or plunderphonic thing that was going on. But that was like enough of a portfolio to get the attention of like the D-Cell people. And the Clara, if you want to kind of like lead into how that whole thing started.
I guess it wasn't like we got the attention of the D-Cell people. It was more just like there was just an opportunity that I saw. It was just like, hey, like... So a lot of the stuff we were making for Avalanche, we noticed like when we would like finish something up, we would be like, hey, this sounds like a song from a video game. This sounds like a song that would be in like some stealth action like shooter or something, or it'd be like, oh, this is like an underground level or something. Like
we were constantly comparing it to video game stuff.
Yeah, like, and it wasn't intentional. Like we wouldn't like make a song like we were gonna make a song that sounds like it's from a video game. It would just happen. Just like, oh, we would think, oh, it'd be so cool to make music for a video game. But that was just like a little like pipe dream. It was just like, oh, whatever. That's like whatever. Like our main thing is just we're gonna make drum and bass or whatever, and then that's that. But there was this one time, let's say I was like scrolling through Twitter, and so Andrew, our director, posted on Twitter that he was looking for composers for a little game, a little rhythm adventure game. And I happened to see that on my Twitter timeline. I was like, you know what? This seems like it's a low stakes thing. So you know what? I'll just send an email and see what you think. Like, and I asked Vasily, like, hey, what do you think? Should we send something? He's like, okay, sure. And 2 months later, we somehow gelled enough with both Andrew and Jeff, who we met later as well. And let's see, and RJ too. Yeah, RJ was there at the time. So like it was just us 5 at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we somehow just gelled with him. And we're like, oh, we're like making a thing together now, I guess. Like, and I honestly, I swear to God, I think, Vasily, you're the one that actually like made us like be able to like do this, because I was awkwardly like on our first call, everyone together, while they were like interviewing us and like asking like our like experience and whatnot and like preparing whatever. There was this huge tangent on just like anime that I was just like, I have no idea what the hell anyone is saying, but you and like Jeff and Andrew were just like talking like for an hour about anime. I'm just like, I feel like that is what kind of made us like feel comfortable with them, and maybe them with us, is that we all kind of just got it though. It's just like we got the vibe from the start.
Yeah, and it was a very, very quick click with the rest of the team, and then especially with like RJ joining in, it's just like everybody knows their own like obscure but easy to share like piece of like popular culture, or even like extraordinarily unpopular culture.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a lot of what the
best stuff.
What the fuck are you talking about? And then that would turn into a whole thing, and then get other people interested in it, and then it became this kind of like, it was almost just like cult like spreading within the circle. And so
like on a base level, it really does feel like it's just, oh, we're just like friends making a thing. Like now we're at the point where it's like, oh, this is a whole like project. We have to like hunker down and like do this and like plan this out. But like there still is that kind of air of just like, oh, we're just like, we all had this kind of thing, this idea that we all kind of had. We all kind of like happened to just come together and have like after some discussion, and now like it's still that way. It's just like, this is friends making a thing we're very passionate about. So
yeah,
that's a good feeling. I mean, there's a lot to be said about like being able to like vibe, being able to hang. I mean, I've heard pretty much every major producer, you get the question like, you know, oh man, how do you get the internship? How do you get the job or whatever? It's like, listen, the most important thing is that you can hang. And I mean, I think that goes for professional relationships between different like branches or arms of something just as much as it does with people who work together in one setting, like a studio or a band.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you, no matter how good everyone in a studio is at their job, if you can't get along, shit won't get done.
Yeah.
You have to get along with people, and you have to understand and sympathize with those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if there's like a conflict, you have to be able to just like talk about it and be like,
Resolve
okay,
it.
we need to figure that out. And I think that's something like we all do as well. It's like, hey, there's something that's up. Let's talk about it. And it always gets resolved, and it's really nice.
Yeah, it's like no one gives us shit. You know, everyone else shit about like if there's any problems, people will bring it up and people will talk like, you know, be adults about it.
Yeah.
And it's really refreshing to see, because it's just, I worked in so many, you know, toxic environments where if I have a problem, that becomes a whole
Just festers.
Well, it doesn't fester; it just blows up, like without even much stake to like the issue. And it's just like, it's super toxic. And I've dipped out of several projects. I'm not going to name drop on this, but I've had to dip out of projects because of that toxicity.
Yeah.
That's
exhausting.
Well, I was trepidatious initially about D-Cell 2 because I've been burned so many times, and so I was kind of, you know, I had a big burst of confidence initially because I wanted to give good impressions, but then I quickly realized, oh, these people are genuinely good people. They genuinely care about this project. They genuinely care about Clara and I, and it's just it was nice to be part of that, and so that's really, really pumped up the motivation to work on the project.
You know, it's so wild too. Like, so we started talking with Andrew and Jeff and RJ, like, I think it was like in late January, early February of like 2018.
Yeah.
And a year later, MagFest 2019, we saw them for the first time, and we're just like hanging out with like everyone. It was just like, oh, this like went just like up and outwards just like immediately. Holy shit.
These people were complete strangers from the internet initially, and I think that MagFest was the initial like actual bonding experience we had with everyone, because initially it was just still, these are people on the internet that are passionate and we're working with them, but we're not really like friends with these people, right? MacFest 2019 was kind of that breaking point where it's like, I know this person.
Yeah.
Like I can connect and feel, have this human connection with the person. And it was nice.
Yeah, they saw me drunk.
Yeah. It's always nice to be vulnerable around new people you meet. That ends up working out more times than it doesn't. So
Yeah.
So yeah. Between, let's see, college, the chronological timeline between college, meeting up as Avalanche. We started working with D-Cell. I forget. We had a phase where we watched this streamer named Vinny from Vinesauce, and we were big fans of his stream because it was a lot of esoteric and strange games, and he had a lot of influence and talk about like classic rock and stuff like that. And so we actually ended up gelling with him, and it kind of was for as side projects we would make just kind of meme songs around the streams. They would get attention. They would get a lot of attention.
Hey, meme songs are legit. That's completely valid. There's some really good meme songs out there. And
so like because of making meme music, like we kind of were able to, we didn't get like an audience, but we got enough people kind of like on our radar, or we were on enough people's radars where I think we were just kind of confident enough to make music for an audience, starting with D-Cell, and I think that they gave us more confidence to like make and share music, which I know initially I had a lot of problems with. I was pretty scared of sharing my stuff, but are
you kidding? I still am scared to share my stuff. I
think a lot of people go to that. I know. I mean, the Six Figure Home Studio would always talk about like when you're trying to deal with clients and being, empathetic to that, basically constantly saying like, as an artist, you are putting your heart and soul into this. And so there is that fear that somebody's going to listen to it and say, ooh, I don't like that. That's ugly. Your heart and soul is ugly and I don't like it. It feels so personal in that way. So yeah, I think a lot of people absolutely experience that in any art form, really. It can be scary. It can be, because it is such a vulnerable experience for sure.
Yeah, like definitely like, but yeah, like having that little audience that we accumulated through like those little, just funny little songs, it just like gave us confidence of just like, hey, maybe we're actually like decent at this and we could like do a thing. I think maybe that is why too, is just like I had the confidence to just like, to just take a chance and send that one fateful email to D-Cell and be like, what's up? Here's our music. Maybe you like it. Maybe you don't.
And they're like, write us a demo. And we're like, oh shit. Like we got to write a demo now.
I mean, the worst they're going to do is say no,
Yeah. And so we wrote something in like 6 days, I think. It was quick.
Nice.
Yeah. It was, it wasn't a complete song. It was like 2 minutes or so, but it was like, here's a general vibe of a song that maybe might work. What was it UB demo that you're talking about?
Yeah, so UB demo actually it's turned into 2 different songs, I believe. So the original fork of it was Forever Now, I believe, right?
Let me see.
If I'm remembering correctly, it's been a minute.
I think no, Forever Now was its own thing.
Oh, right.
But UB demo, we actually, that was just kind of there around like March, and then it was like put on the back burner because it was just like, okay, this is good, but we're working on other songs. But now recently we've like kind of brought it up again, and like it actually sounds like way different than it sounded 5 years ago.
Completely different. Yeah.
You gotta love that sometimes when you can revisit something and just completely change it up or recontextualize it.
I don't know if it will be in the final game, but it's still like fun to like hear it. So
yeah,
I would, one thing I would love to have is like a B-side of the soundtrack when it eventually comes out, of like cut or unfinished content.
That'd be sick.
Or even a C-side, honestly.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, here's stuff that wouldn't make it, but something that generally would be kind of for the vibe of the game. So
yeah.
So I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so it was just like that demo was written in like 6 or so days. And what do you remember their initial reactions to that? I don't honestly remember. It's been so long before they were just like, oh, this is cool. I guess we're hired.
So it was a very, very frank reaction, which was, "This is the best demo we've received yet. Do you want to work with us?" And we're like, "Oh, okay." It was pretty done and dusted. So, yeah, that was pretty cool to see that, because I assumed they got a lot of emails from that, because it was a pretty it was like pretty up there in terms of the hashtag of "I need a team," right, on Twitter.
I remember, I remember there was like a lot of likes and retweets and replies to the tweet though, of just hey, I sent something. So I think there were a lot of
a lot of engagement.
Yeah. So being able to kind of come out on top and because it's music and being hired for sound is an extraordinarily competitive environment. If you see a job listing, even in a AAA thing, it's just the position's gone in a week, basically.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily fast. And so,
I mean, it's like a test mix too.
Yeah.
If you see a major label or artist or whatever trying to get a test mix, it's, you can end up with dozens or even over 100 test mix you're up against. I mean, it's crazy trying to actually get into the top one in any kind of position like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, we were pretty lucky to be able to have gotten in, and not only have gotten in, but also working with a really, really good and empathetic team. Nobody's been gotten weird over the years. Nobody's gotten even I've been in projects before where it's as soon as money is involved, people get weird. And what was impressive is that people's attitude, as soon as funding and money came in, didn't really change. People's strategies changed, and people's perspectives on the weight of a lot of situations changed, but realistically the way people acted and these negative personalities really came out of it. And I was just oh, these people are still just very, very genuine.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
It feels there's certain aspects that have changed, but it's more just we've learned a lot, and we're learning a lot how to be a game studio, and but it still hasn't changed that, we are just people making a game here, and that's it. We just want to make a cool thing.
We want to make a cool thing. We want to express ourselves. We all want something to do.
And grateful just to have the budget to do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we started with that UB demo, and then we moved on, and because we were kind of well, what the fuck, kind of music? What is going to be the signature sound of this game? And that took years to figure out, because we had originally before what it was called Proper Rhythm, we had Griller, that was an early project. I think Forever Now was one of the beginning projects too, and that sounded pretty different as well.
It was I think, to give somewhat of a timeline, Forever Now was the first full song that was written for Unbeatable. It was June, late June 2018 when Forever Now was finished. So literally 3 years before we had even just released the soundtrack to the public. Forever Now was finished. It's kind of wild to think about that, actually.
Well, it had two iterations too, because you had the acoustic breathy part added to Forever Now, which used to not be there, because we had a version of Forever Now for a while that was kind of the out beta version, right? Remember that? And it was a lot more synth heavy, and it had that plucky and bass synth going on, and now it's a lot more just rock with synth.
Yeah.
And that's kind of I think that was kind of the founding song of the signature sound.
I remember Jeff saying that's when they thought, oh my God, I'm working on something special, which is really nice to hear. It's just that's kind of their song when they just had a little moment. It was hey. Of course, I don't want to put words into their mouth, but that's kind of what I it got implied by them. So
Jeff had the best reactions to whatever we posted. They were just oh, I've been listening to this for the last 3 hours on loop, and it's just holy shit, that is really validating.
So Jeff is definitely the hype man.
They're the producer of Unbeatable, and so they're very, very hype, very, very bubbly, open personality. It's very easy to work with.
But then after, let's see, so after Forever Now was Worn Out Tapes, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually kind of thinking about that. It's a wild, just like deviation from what we were working on. Because,
way wild.
And because also like this version of the game was like so different, like story wise. Like we had like, honestly, the chapters were just like based around the what's it called?
Stages of grief.
Yeah, the stages of grief. And so like Worn Out Tapes was written to be like denial.
It was denial.
Yeah.
Yep.
And each like chapter had its own distinct like style of music instead of just like being a one cohesive style of music. And so we had to combine elements that were kind of electronic and whatnot. And so that's how Worn Out Tapes was made. And I think that was also, let's see, that kind of continued on. And we were like working on Proper Rhythm-ish for a little bit when that was still Griller. Until like, okay, so like that song, so Proper Rhythm was supposed to be kind of like almost like a Thriller ripoff, basically. Like we were making, like I remember the sequence or something was like that was like beat with like find like these like people that would just like looked lifeless and just like dead, and then they would just like start dancing to this like Thriller ripoff song, and that's what Proper Rhythm initially was supposed to be, is that song for that. And so I remember like going through like, so I have like a lot of like voice memos on my phone where I just like record random music ideas that I like come up with just
nice.
Sometimes just I'm just playing the piano. Oh, I found this thing that sounds cool. I'm gonna record it. And yeah, it was just like a little riff that I played on piano. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. And then recorded it on my phone. And like later when we were like working on that song, we were like, hey, I think I have something for this. And so I went and found that riff, put it into Ableton. We had Griller for a while, but it was still distinctively different than Proper Rhythm as it is now, because like it was more just like a 4 on the floor type, almost like a disco thing. But MagFest 2019, we were just like, we need to finish like both Worn Out Tapes, like get a final mix of that and finish Proper Rhythm. And I remember just like banging my head against the wall, just like, like this is okay, but it's not great. And so like I remember posting a demo on the Unbeatable Music channel in our Discord, be like, this is okay. And I think this is like a really good example of like why I love working with like the D-Cell people, is because like RJ had this like idea of just like, so he was just like, okay, there's this one specific moment in this demo where it's just like, this is the vibe, like everything else, throw it out. Like basically just like, but there's this one specific moment where it just like, it goes back to the riff. You have that 1, 2, 3, and it goes into like this, you know, cool like riff thing. And it's just like, and then he had some notes around that and just be like, maybe instead of like 4 the floor, like do this and have like a touch point of Sega or Sonic CD or something. And so at first I was kind of like annoyed because I was just like, well, okay, I guess I'm throwing a lot of this out and like I only have like 5 more days to make this. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And so I was like, okay, we're going to make this into like a Naganuma type of thing now. Like, and so I went and searched in my grandpa's like record collection that he gave me. And I found this like record that was just like, what was it? It was just like some touch typing course or something like that. I was like, interesting. So I just like put that on my record player. Like I am hearing all these like different, just like phrases. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, like if this is an early song, what if this is a tutorial song? And so I hear like home row keys, you know, wiggle your fingers, jam the keys. I'm like, wait a minute. And so I just like started skipping around the record. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And that's kind of the idea of just like, okay, this is like the vibe on top of like what RJ has. And then like, oh my God. And then it was just like 3 days of like nonstop, like working on it. And then there we go, there's Proper Rhythm. And so that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere because we were working on Gorilla for a while. And I was like, I would have a couple ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a synth thing. Here's like a reverse like kick. Maybe here's like something to do. I was pretty like burnt out on the song because I was like, I don't know how to make pop. I don't know how to make funk. This is completely new to me. Here's a couple ideas. Here's the that you can hear at the end of the song. And then
that's how the song ends.
Yeah, that's how the song ends. That's my voice. But you know, Clara just like, let me grab this song, and kind of like almost out of like, not spite towards the feedback. I almost want to say spite out of the feedback, but it ended up like she ended up taking all the feedback, taking it, and then just exploding it into this just masterpiece of a song. And
thank you.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of our signature songs at this point.
That's
Nice.
wild to think about.
Nice.
That's wild to think about. That people listen to that song.
Like when people think about Unbeatable, a lot of people, the first thing they would say is proper rhythm,
Right.
and it's that's crazy. That's how it was.
And that
made.
was, let's see, like early 2020, late 2019. That song was made again, like so long before even like the soundtrack was released.
And I knew jack shit about mixing at the time too. So that whole song went through 3 different mixing iterations.
Yeah.
The first one was on SoundCloud. Does not sound that great. There was a second one that was used internally, and then there's the third one that's right now on YouTube.
Yeah, the final mix of which sounds exquisite.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I learned a lot by basically taking a track, mixing it, not being happy with it 4 months later, redoing it entirely, and
Starting over is a good practice.
it is. And,
Yeah.
It really is.
working on the same song using a different like context with different skills, and as you can just kind of hear the difference between your old work and your new work, and it's kind of a it's a positive feedback loop. And so I've learned a ton, basically knowing absolutely nothing from mixing or EQing techniques to working on stuff to watching a billion Dan Worrell videos, who is my Lord and Savior. I love Dan Worrell so much.
Thanks, Dan Worrell.
I love him. And it's become kind of second nature to me of what I need to do, and I can hear, does this only need does it only need balancing, or does it need more compression? Does it need more distortion? Does it need to kind of sound worse, ostensibly? Right?
Yeah.
That was like Familiar. Familiar actually was a pretty like kind of clean song originally, and they're just like I put in an iteration, and Clara's like, nope, needs to sound worse. And so I'm like, let me just saturate the master channel and like compress the fuck out of it. And I almost kind of like was taking the piss out of it, and Clara was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What you just explained is I'm remembering on Lord of the Rings, on the Return of the King, if you have seen the movie and remember the like orc captain in the big battle and how he's got that like really weird lumpy looking face, and it was exactly that sort of situation with Peter Jackson. He's like the costume maker is like lumping a little bit, just kind of trying to make it look a little uglier, and Peter will come in, Nah, it needs to be like uglier. It needs to be more ugly. And eventually he just gave up and started slapping clay all over the one side of the face and just sculpted into this big face tumor. And it's like, all right, this is too much. He'll ask me to dial it back now. And he walks in. There we go. That's it. Perfect. I'm just imagining it. As I think I know which song that was. Was that the one you had sent me that ended up doing like the double master on just to mess with it even more?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. It was like
you're just like, you're trying to mess it up even more. So like, why don't we just master the master until it sounds really stupid?
It was dummy stupid. There's like a devil lock and decapitator, as well as like Ableton saturator on the drum channel, which was already like basically clipping and played extremely violently. And then it was just like, I barely balanced anything. I threw in an Arturia Microbrute as the bass synth in there, kind of at the last second, and
it sounded great.
Yeah, it kind of ended up sounding good. So thank you.
It's not about sounding as technically good as it can. It's about vibe.
The vibe.
You got to get the vibe.
I think like Familiar is the most like vibe song. The most kind of like this is a garage band that threw together a fucking song in fucking a week before they're playing, right? And it feels very demo-y, and it feels very
sometimes you want it to sound like it was recorded in a garage by people who don't know what they're doing.
I mean, actually, didn't we actually make that, like, because initially RJ wrote, like, the initial riff, the original arrangement, but, like, didn't we actually just, like, spend, like, almost less than a week working on Familiar?
It was less than a week. It was quick. Yeah.
Like, I remember, I recorded, like, guitars one day, drums the next, and I think I sent the rest off to you to work on. And then
Rachel sent us the vocals, and we kind of just put it all together, and I guess it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a quick song. I mean, I guess RJ wrote it like 3 or 4 years prior.
No, I think it was like 2014, honestly.
God,
yeah.
Jesus.
9 years ago.
Yeah.
Thanks, RJ.
Thanks, RJ. Big shout out.
Sounds like you got a number of those tracks that seem to be pretty quick turnover.
Some
Seems to
are,
be
some aren't.
repeat.
Yeah. Oh my God. Waiting was like the longest thing because.
An appropriate name.
Yeah. Let's see. So Waiting.
It's originally called Flow Punk.
Yeah, Flow Punk,
Yeah.
because of just like the vibe that we were trying to go for. And RJ had the specific idea of like this, because like Waiting is supposed to be like kind of this song that goes with like a set piece with the game. And so like RJ had this specific idea of just like, okay, the song needs to like have these specific beats of just like, the main thing is that we need to make a punk song with an acoustic guitar, but it switches over to electric guitar in the middle, and we have this, like sequence where things are like switching over, and that needs to like, and then when the electric guitar comes in, it needs to like come in like full force,
Yeah.
And then so it's just like, I think Waiting, it started, I think April 2020, I think,
it was early 2020 to it was like either like late spring to early summer. I think we'd have to actually look at like the splice files for that.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like around like somewhere around there where we were just like kind of like just throwing anything at the wall and being like, this kind of works. And I think there was like, I swear to God, there's like 15 iterations before we finally found the iteration. I think the actual version of Waiting that everybody knows now, after like 8 months or so of just like kind of just like throwing ideas at the wall and just like going off and on again. Finally in January, it was just like, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, like I found like the guitar riff that just that the song starts with. Like that is what I found and was like, wait a minute, this is like super simple, but it is so effective. Like, cause I mean, I was writing like super just like complicated stuff that was just like not really like punk sounding. It was more almost like technical sounding, but like
Punk is about simplicity a lot of the time.
yeah. And so like this one riff, I was just like, this is literally just the same chord, but it's just got a punch to it. Okay, let me try some stuff. If I do like this chord now with it, it sounds really cool. And that's kind of how Waiting kind of started, or kind of morphed into what we have now. Is just like this constant iteration of just like, okay, like I have an idea, Vasily has an idea, and we just kind of go back and forth. And I'm like, oh, now we finally have a song after like almost a year.
Yeah.
I didn't contribute a lot to that song. The main thing I contributed was the breakdown in between the first verse and this kind of the climactic chorus, which is the da 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 da.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I wrote that little synth riff, and then just like a couple of the pad parts, but really like you turned that original riff that was like da 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 da, which you only hear once. Now the original riff of the song was a repeating kind of like almost a rock and roll riff, but then you only hear that for a split second. Now,
it's literally right before that section that you're talking about. Like that is the original riff. It was like, because I wanted to see if I could keep it in as just like a little callback for myself, really just like, oh, this is where the song started, and I was so happy I was able to just like fit it in right there,
and it
right
works
before.
so well.
So yeah, Waiting. It was a lot of waiting.
That was a lot of waiting, a lot of iterations. That one was also just like a ton ton of iterations of like mixing because that's an insanely long project.
Shit,
and
yeah. I
it's
think it was like 160 tracks.
yeah, and it's just
Nice.
like my CPU could not handle that track at that time. So I had an original iteration, which sounded okay. But then after upgrading the CPU and learning some more techniques, I was able to work on that project along with actually worn out tapes. I worked on them kind of simultaneously.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty happy with how those two turned out now. So
Yeah.
It's even after you're finished with a song, you're still thinking about it constantly. It's
Yeah.
like
Great
it's
art is
like-
never finished,
it's
only
like, oh,
abandoned.
do we need to re-record the drums? Do we need to re-record the vocals?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, it's just like in a game that's currently in development, it's kind of like we have demo tapes right now, and people are constantly asking. It's like, oh, put this on streaming services. We're like, we don't even know if we're like done with these songs. You know, so
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's healthier to call it quits on a lot of songs, but
I don't know. I feel like for the final soundtrack, maybe I don't want to like make promises, but there's like a part of me that wants to like re-record at least Mirror and Empty Diary, because those songs were not recorded because in 2020 is when I got like the unbeatable guitar. It's the Gibson Les Paul that's blue, and I got my orange amp, and that's what the sound of Familiar and Waiting is, like that. And but Empty Diary and Mirror don't have those. Like those were from like my old like LTD guitar or something like that, which is fine. But I'm just like in my head, I'm just like, but what if I did re-record those and like made these sound more unbeatable now that we can? And so there's just like, if I have time, I want to do that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's always like when you get new gear, and like a lot of the songs created with the new gear get associated with your sound, you kind of want to revisit old stuff, and you know, with that gear and new techniques even, and just like the evil.
Yeah.
Also, I think Mirror still uses like a MIDI bass.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
I didn't realize. Is it the Contact one?
I think so.
Just like the Rickenbacker?
Actually, no, I think it's Trillion.
Is it Trillion?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm pretty sure Trillium was what was used on Attention by Charlie Puth.
Interesting.
I think that was Trillium. I think that was the sound of that bass, if I remember right.
Huh. We'll have to
Look into that.
You'll have to look into that. I need to listen to that song again, and
Hell yeah.
we'll see if we can point it out.
It's a pretty iconic bass line for what apparently wasn't a real bass.
Hey, if it sounds good, it sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. It is good. Yeah.
I feel like we've kind of like really like leaned into that, me and Vasily, like throughout the years, because like we were definitely like gear heads for a while. Like we didn't like say that you know, we had to like have the best gear and whatnot. We were
Yeah.
kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah. We were
but
talking
at
about
this-
mics constantly.
Yeah, but at this point, at least me personally, I'm just like, honestly, like I have mostly what I need to make music. Like, I don't like, yeah, sure, I could get like nice mics or more pedals or amps or more guitars, but like,
always.
honestly, I have what I need. I just like,
Yeah.
yeah, like if it sounds good, like even like this apartment, like I record demos in here that I send to the team, and honestly, they sound pretty good. And like maybe honestly, like I might not have to re-record some of the guitar parts because they already sound good enough recorded in here. So like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if it works, it works. And if it's like, even if it's just serviceable enough and you have a song that works, like, yeah, that's enough. And it's you know, what you're putting in emotionally at that moment when you're writing it. I think that's kind of like the most important part.
Yes,
And you
yes.
know, there are some
Yeah.
times where you do, you know, you maybe should re-record certain parts, like if you don't want like sampled sounding drums, if you want a little bit more finesse with like ghost notes and whatnot,
Yeah.
you know, or brushes. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of the sound can only be achieved with the actual acoustic instrument.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like for me personally, like a song, like especially unbeatable songs, really come together for me personally when I am able to record like the live drums, because a lot of what I do right now is I will like since I'm living in an apartment right now, I only have an e-drum kit. And so I just use like Addictive Drums to like demo out drums. But when I hear like the actual like live drums tracked in like songs, I'm just like, oh, this sounds so much better, even though I just replace the drums and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that can help too, and it just helps it help the beat really feel human, which is like kind of like a lot of the big narrative portion of Unbeatable is it's just like humans creating music, wanting to create music, wanting to express themselves, and so being able to have that kind of reflect in the music itself, making it feel like this is made by humans.
Yeah,
A bit of emotional storytelling in a way. Yeah. Well, I mean, the fun thing too is I was having this conversation with, I don't even remember who, somebody recently, about the way that you can record shockingly easily sometimes, finding space for things you want to record and I think it was actually Toby. I think Toby and I were talking about drums, and I made the point that honestly I have an easier time finding good drum rooms that don't charge me to use the space than I do finding good drums or gear a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like one of the best drum rooms I've ever worked in was just it was like the library kind of community room in the local church we were like living near at the time. And it's like, I just talked to them and they're like, oh yeah, no, this is the code for the key. And just, don't be doing it when we have things going on, which is most of the time. Like they don't have things most of the time, so it's pretty much like free reign a lot of the time. So
fuck yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like it doesn't take that much to find a good space and stuff. So it's it's kind of like what you're saying. Sometimes it's not about going hard and finding the most expensive piece of gear and the most expensive studio and everything. Sometimes you have a few little tools that you need, and you can get some really great results out of just basic stuff. I mean, I've seen some guys get some great sounding drums out of cheapo mics and terrible preamps and stuff. And it's like, yeah, obviously you want to have the best tools, but you don't need the best tools.
Right. You need to be able to know how to use the tools in the first place before getting the nice ones. They're not going to make you better at what you do. They're just going to make it so that what you're already good at is going to be faster.
Yeah.
Or done faster.
And it's definitely much more of a workflow thing too with a lot of tools. It's like you see it all the time, like, oh, what is the best this? And it's like, genuinely the answer to what is the best this a lot of the time is, what is your workflow? It's like, at a certain level, what you're buying is not a better sounding something. It's a better thing for your specific type of workflow. I think you and I actually talked about that last time I had you on too. Yeah,
we went on a big tangent about basically like, what is the point of nice gear? And it isn't necessarily like, is it going to sound better? Sometimes it's in the context of people are going to know you have that gear and are more likely to work or want to work with you, or that particular piece of gear is going to help you work on a certain thing faster. Or sometimes it's just a little bit of for some people it's, I'm going to use it because I want to justify my purchase, and so they're going to end up getting more shit done. So it's
That's
different.
really funny.
And and sometimes you just get this like Eastern European guy with like a pair of 3-inch KRKs and a shitty laptop, and he's just making the most incredible trance you've ever heard.
Yeah,
and it's just like, how the fuck do you like manage to pull that off? And it's,
I mean, listen to stuff people are doing with Vital.
Yeah.
It's just a free synth, and people out there making some of the coolest sounds you can hear.
Vital is really cool.
There's an insane amount of like synth tutorials with Vital too, and it's just really good documentation on how to use it, creative ways how to use it, and then like
how to learn synth. I mean, even on my own channel, I've got videos of like, starter stuff in synthesis, and that's the one I'm teaching people, the little basics and the building blocks on, because anyone can grab it, Yeah, I think another thing we talked about was just like how crazy it is, the tools that are available to people these days. But one thing you said you wanted to talk about earlier is we were hanging out before we started recording, just like munching on chips and playing with the really nice orange amp that you have there.
Oh, yes.
But we started talking about making connections and networking what am I, networking
Sideways.
yeah, networking sideways, and actually like trying to build your own sort of generation of people to work with, as opposed to just always trying to, be friends with the coolest person right now.
And a lot of, and that kind of wraps back to the timeline of when we initially met Jeff and Andrew. Is we weren't trying to, like message people with like fucking 60,000 followers trying to be part of like one big thing. Like with the Vine Sauce thing, we were kind of more like targeting towards the community rather than like trying to, work our way up or anything.
Well, I mean,
we were just, being trying to be part of the community. But with D-Cell, these were high school kids that were working on a passion project, and we were like, yo, want to work? Like, can we work together? And it ended up working out.
You guys need music? We do music.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like there's a community thing too versus like just like clout chasing or whatever. I mean, my last guest got a lot of, his whole band kind of started because he and Jeremy were part of the, Achievement Hunter just fan community.
Oh, cool.
And they were just like making music, and eventually Jeremy got hired by Achievement Hunter, and he and Spencer were making music for Achievement Hunter. And it's, that was a community thing. They weren't like chasing after that sort of thing in a way that sort of naturally happened. And it naturally happened because they were making it for people like them, Right. They weren't trying to get noticed. They were making it for people who were fans and who were going to enjoy the whole experience. And that's definitely how that sounds.
Yeah, find your niche, and if you enjoy it, then just keep going, and hopefully you'll find something, and like you'll still enjoy it because it's what made you really good in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you are very, very good at something, you'll find that surprisingly there's going to be a demand for it. Maybe it's not right now. Maybe it's not next week. Maybe it's not next year. But if you're damn good at it and you know how to even market yourself even a little bit, there's going to be someone that's going to notice and say, holy shit, I didn't know I needed that. Or holy
hard
shit.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
This person, this is the one person that knows how to do this specific thing. Like, people are going to look out for it. Even if you're like a candle maker, even if you're a soap maker, if you're incredibly good at it, people are going to want to work with you.
Yeah. No, the lateral, like the networking sideways versus networking vertically, the thing that I had mentioned, the thing that kind of got the conversation going too, the thing you get from networking sideways is that you're meeting new people with fresh ideas, and you're making those connections with the people who are going to be the big guys in the future, but you're making connections with them in a meaningful and real way where you can learn from each other and like really develop a relationship with each other. Like the big guys, they already have their network. At a certain point, a lot of them start getting a little bit more like in their ways and stuff, and very much they've, like you were saying, they found their niche. They found their community. They found the people that inspire them and stuff. And they're going to be busy. They're going to have all kinds of people coming after them. And even if you're a recognizable face, a lot of them, you're not the guy in their network. And, like Vasily had said when we were talking about it, like you might get to talk to them every now and again, but you're not getting to like hang out and pick their brain just every day. You're not just hooking up on Discord, be like, check out this thing I've got. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. What if you did this? And then they give you something like, oh man, I love that. What if you did this? Getting that kind of thing helps you grow, and it helps you to be a part of the new generation. You don't want to just keep on chasing after some legacy thing. Right. Otherwise you're going to be the dudes trying to be a like hair metal band in 2023. Like you want to be your band. You want to be whatever's going to be big in 2026 or whatever,
Well, and it's just like forming that kind of like symbiotic relationship with something is really, really special. It's just like growing in, the music career and even industry. Like I knew fucking nothing about the music industry, about synths, about guitars, about the pedals, about microphones. None of that. I knew how to play piano from piano lessons, occasionally, private piano tutors. That's about it. I like listening to metal and electronic music. That's about it. Working with Clara, I was always asking questions. How did you do that? How did you do that? How did you do that? And it was always just like, let me show you how I did this, or here's how you can apply this to yourself. And I learned a lot being in that kind of relationship with Clara.
Yeah.
And it was just, I ended up learning a lot. And, even today, I sometimes feel like I'm in like an infancy where I'm still learning stuff and I'm always behind, I always feel like I'm behind on something where it's just like, I'm not, it's like, I could have known more by the time I'm here. And it's kind of, almost kind of an imposter syndrome thing, which is really hard to let go. Where it's just like, I'm working on this really big project. Do I really know enough to like justify my being here of the project? And it's just it's hard to shake that feeling, but
I think the thing for me that kind of contextualized imposter syndrome was watching an interview or something with Notch and him talking about imposter syndrome and seeing that like this dude created one of the most iconic video games of the last century. So really just one of the most iconic video games, honestly. And sold the whole thing off for $2 billion. And he's still sitting there thinking like, I don't know. I don't think I really did anything. I don't feel like I've earned any of this, or like it's one of those things where it doesn't seem to matter what height you've reached, what cultural impact you've had. That imposter syndrome seems like it's always going to be there. So I always have to sit there and like kind of approach it from a rational mindset when I think about it and just go like, this is not a rational way I'm thinking. Like I have this imposter syndrome, but so does this dude who I look up to in some way. Like when you hear a musician talk about it, and like, what are you talking about? You wrote this amazing record, but it's crazy how it'll get to you. Even when you can look at it and it's like, I mean, if these guys who changed my artistic outlook on life have it, then maybe it's just my brain trying to make me feel bad about myself or something,
Yeah.
Brains
it's
are
crazy.
weird.
None of us really know what we're doing. That's kind of the thing. We're all just really trying to just get through life. I think
we're riding the wave and we're trying to stay afloat the best we can, and we're just slowly getting better at learning how to stay afloat. But we are still riding a wave that, if we fuck up, can crash any second. So
that's kind of one of those freeing things too, is realizing, you can just kind of take chances and do crazy stuff because maybe it won't work out, but at the same time, you have no idea if doing the right, like doing the thing that was working for you work out in 10 years anyway. So, why not?
Yeah.
Why not try?
As you were saying earlier, like the worst thing that someone can say is no. If someone says no, you're like, okay. And then you can just, try again, or, try somewhere different, change your strategy a little bit.
Sometimes things take a while to catch on too. I mean, you guys remember, was it Coffin Dance when that was going around?
I don't recognize.
It was one of those meme songs that was really popular. It was like the, what am I thinking? There was I want to say it was in Ghana. There's the, like coffin dancers.
Oh, what the fuck was it called? Astramentus or,
I don't remember the actual name of the song off the top of my head. That song.
I recognize what you're talking about.
That song was everywhere. It blew up. Because of this meme and because of that video. That song had been out for like 10 years before that happened. It had been a decade. I mean, imagine putting out a song in 2013 and suddenly it's all over the internet and everyone's like sharing your stuff and, you're in a completely different place. It's 10 years. We change a lot in 10 years as people. You look back at who you were in 2013 and go like, wow, but imagine something you did back then blowing up. That's kind of the crazy nature of being a creative person, is like, sometimes something you're doing isn't going to find its audience right away,
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things too. It's just like, if you're in a creative field, it's really, really difficult for some people to quantify success. But the biggest thing is that if you are able to live comfortably and make something that you are doing, you are by default successful.
Yeah.
Now, the part of reaching the part of the process of reaching the part where you're living in comfort is the difficult part, and a lot of that requires luck. But you can mitigate luck by taking risks and making more and more, and so you can kind of increase your chances of that happening. You create a lot of music. You put in a lot of study. You email random people. You talk to people that maybe you're a little bit scared or a little bit intimidated to originally reach out to, and
find the people nobody's heard of and are doing something really cool and network.
And and just don't be surprised if you get rejected. Sometimes people are going to reject you. Sometimes you're going to work with people that are going to burn you, but you can't let that stop you from continuing to try.
Yeah.
As RJ kind of succinctly puts it, failing upwards.
Yeah.
Oh man, ain't that the truth? I mean, it's what am I saying? I know I've mentioned before. There's also like sometimes you find a community and you don't realize right away that it's going to be where the next generation comes from. But I think of like in metal, the number of times I've watched some of those old interviews with dudes who are really popular now, and they're talking about how like, oh yeah, I remember you. You used to be like so and so on the Andy Sneap forum, and you were always posting this. Like, oh yeah, you were that guy.
That's so
and it's all these like really famous dudes, but they all used to know each other as just like random music nerds on the Sneap forum who were just posting bedroom songs to each other. And these guys all blew up, and like URM is one of those communities now.
That is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, being in it again, networking sideways. All these dudes were just meeting each other in these little forums, and now they're all torn with each other in these huge bands.
I mean, shit. That's how we ended up hiring our other mapper, Cheryl. Where she was making basically fan mashups of our music, as well as doing like mod charts for the game, which we were like, well, she's incredibly good and persistent at this. Was working on a game called Vivid Stasis, which Jeff ended up publishing, and that kind of all led into it's just like this was a fan working on mashups and charts for the game, and was really, really good at it. And we were just like, fuck it, why don't we have you on? We need this anyways. So that was kind of an example where it's like, if you find something that you really, really like, you can contribute to it, and there's a good chance that
people will notice.
There's a good chance people will notice, and there is a, albeit smaller, chance that you can get involved in something directly to it. Like, there's a lot of cases of like gray hat hackers like working on like security breaches intentionally or fixing them, reporting them to bigger tech companies, and getting hired by those companies.
Yep.
So
I've definitely heard stories like that before.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's creating things and putting them out there is kind of just important practice anyway. Being in that mindset and being in that practice is going to go a long way. And I mean, the two of you are doing it. The two of you definitely have been on top of that, and it's led you to a really cool place. And I mean, like I said, we knew each other in high school. Like, we all went to school together. I remember hanging out in percussion. I remember throwing drumsticks at each other and, just goofing around and, being in the various concerts and stuff. And it's like being able to sit here now, well into our adulthoods, all is just completely like growing through all of our experiences and all of our, work we've done in music and everything like that. And actually seeing where everybody is today. We can't know what the future is going to look like. We couldn't have known this. I can't imagine if the three of us in high school in like 2008 or 9 or whatever looked at this room of us today, we would have ever predicted that we would be here. But
If you asked me 10 years ago where you thought I would be in 10 years, I probably wouldn't have said in the music, industry. I wouldn't have said that. I'd probably be like, I don't know, architecture or like computer science or something like that.
I thought I was probably going to have a band, and definitely did not consider production as a real thing. And I certainly would not have thought that I was making music, like instrument samples for
Right.
I feel like similarly, like I like 10 years ago, like my whole thing is like, oh God, I want to be in a band, I want to tour. But and I would like produce music, like, but it was more so in the case of, oh, I just want to like produce music so I can like show like my band, like these song ideas that I have. But then I guess that just more like went into producing music, and all of a sudden, hey, I guess now we're producing music for a video game. But it's also really cool too. It's like there was someone in my band that I used to play in, like she's on tour right now, and so she's actually like doing that, and it's like, holy shit, that's still amazing that you still got to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, yay, networking.
Yay, networking. Networking sideways.
I mean, a lot of the people that I used to like meet and hang out with or whatever in URM are going on to do big things now. I'm seeing guys get huge clients. I mean, I know somebody who landed a client from Buster Autohome, like won them back. And he's a major producer. So winning someone back from a major producer is a big deal. I've seen dudes, their studios booked out now. I watched Miami in the URM community, Miami Dolphin. Yes, that's his real name. I've seen his ID, as IL would put it in the podcast every time he asked a question. I've seen him go from just like one of the dudes in the community to like, hosting the Joey Sturgis like YouTube channel. Like it's really awesome to be able to see people that grow into their talent and grow into their like little niche or whatever place they find themselves in their in their creative pursuit. I think that's really cool, and I'm always really inspired seeing that. And it's great learning from people, like I said, being able to be in a position where you can like be in contact with people as they grow, because we all, you work hard at it, you all grow together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of D-Cell feels like. It's like, even just like last night, like me, RJ, Rachel, and Eva were like on a call just hanging out, and RJ was like making a song on Fruity Loops, and I was just like watching him do it. I was like, oh, I would have never thought of like doing that specific like technique. Just like watching him and just like offering suggestions of like, hey, maybe like we could like you could do. I mean, I was so tired. I actually wasn't offering any suggestions. I was just like watching the stream, but it was so like really fun. It was just like, oh, there's like a couple of techniques I might try next time I do some music, and I feel like that goes like the other ways. I've been streaming my music workflow on like calls sometimes. I used to be super scared of doing that, but now I just do it because it feels like it motivates me to just like keep working.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot. And so like maybe, I don't know, like maybe RJ or you have picked up on something that I just like is second nature for me. It's just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I've most certainly picked up certain things, just like just even little things like chord timings, make it so it doesn't like start on the one of a beat. Even like little stuff like that. Something that seems so inconsequential when you even just talking about it makes me bored, but like actually doing it is like fun and exciting, especially when you contextualize it.
Oh, yeah. Right? I think Unbeatable made me like stop making chords on the one for every single chord progression, and now I just do everything on the offbeat. I swear to God.
It's a lot of fun. It adds a lot of groove, and it gives you a lot of room for groove.
Yeah.
And hell, it's just like playing the bass is something I probably never would have done if it wasn't for Link Up 2, where you're just like, hey, dude, you need to play an instrument. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm going to pick up the bass. I'm going to learn it in 3 months. I'm going to cry. I'm going to bleed. I'm going to have a panic attack. But then we made it, and I was proud of it, and I am still playing bass, and I am in love with the instrument. I'm very glad
that happened
bass
for
is
you.
a great instrument. Do recommend. I love the bass.
Love it. Yeah. It is incredibly versatile.
Wait till you'll hear all these bass lines this dude has been making.
I've been working on a lot, and it's been fun.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons that I like working with the two of you as well, is that both of you have that kind of like adventurous creative mindset. I've said before, like the reason we call it True North Audio is that the like original idea was that Sylvia Massey style like adventure audio, you know, like want to record a drum kit on top of a mountain or whatever, you know. And when I talk to you, I get that impression they want to do crazy fun stuff like that, you know, like we've talked about the Mountain Dulcimer project. We've talked about doing tape drums. We've talked about...
Oh, we need to still record in that parking garage.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. The parking garage. Yeah. You're talking about doing this like guerrilla recording in the parking garage. Like, all right, we're going to get out there. We're just going to throw up the drums. And it was like, what? You said just the stereo ribbon, right? Just
as
the only microphone. Yeah. Make sure the levels are set correctly. Do your recording. Get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, because like that parking garage, the whole thing is like the sound of that garage. Like that is the most unique parking garage I have ever heard in my life.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love that kind of adventure, you know, and it's always really fun. I don't like networking upwards or whatever. I don't think I would network upwards with anybody, but like, oh yeah, I'll join you to run into a garage and record drums before they kick you out. You know, none of them are going to be up for that. It's the guys, you know, down here working with you who are also just trying to grow their own thing that are going to do stuff like that. That's where it's fun.
And honestly, Sylvia Massey has been a big inspiration for me with the sound design for Unbeatable. It's like Clara and I like went around just recording random shit around my parents' property, and Clara ended up like combining a whole bunch of that, which is kind of the foundational like hit sound that you hear in Unbeatable.
Oh yeah,
and that was originally like the only hit sound for it, and that's still in the game, but layered with a bunch of other stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff like waves that I recorded when I was in Honduras. There was like footsteps that we recorded in the that skate park that we almost got mauled by a
bobcat.
Bobcat. That was terrifying.
Yeah, see, you're not going to almost get mauled by a bobcat if you're just out there hanging out with big industry people. No.
Let that be a lesson. But yeah, no, it was being able to have a story behind a lot of the sounds and music behind the game is kind of, it is our form of expression, and it feels really special to have that kind of immortalized into the game. And it's it's a really good way to keep the memory fresh too. It's like you hear something in the game and even though there's at this point like thousands of sounds, you can hear one and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly where that's from. This is what we were doing that day and why we're doing it.
I still think about the grass footsteps of like, again, at your parents' property, like those were from your parents' property that we pulled those grass footsteps with. Yeah.
Like we recorded that with your AT shotgun mic and a, what was it? It was that blue Sennheiser mic you have?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember the model name.
I don't remember the name, but that's what we recorded with that. And it's just like, what you're saying is just adventure audio, going out, recording sounds, and then contextualizing it like into a virtual world to make it sound more real.
Yeah. Well, I remember another conversation we had was trying to get like the sound of a train platform. Like trying to record the standard sort of din of conversation and noise and stuff like that, and trying to figure out like, I think I remember you saying like you wanted to be a train platform in Japan, or the sound of one. So you're trying to figure out like, where can you go to get these certain like specific layers, you know, and how to get it all put together. And that like just that creative kind of looking at the world and going like, there's a puzzle out here and I need to find all these pieces and I can put them together. And I think that
that's a really cute way of like contextualizing that. I love it.
One of the sound designers from Halo Infinite, I forget. I think it was Robbie Elias. I may be wrong or misquoting here, but something that one of the sound designers said was, you need to make appropriate sounds out of inappropriate sources, and that is one of my favorite quotes that I've ever heard regarding sound design. Because I apply it to everything I work on now. It's, if I can't get a 1-to-1 sound, how do I make a 1-to-1 sound from a 0-to-1 sound, essentially, if that makes sense? So, for example, if I need to make like a hit sound, maybe I could hit a pillow, or sometimes I could just mangle bird sounds that are recorded outside and squish them down into something tiny, and it can kind of sound like a tail end of the hit sound, making it sound bigger.
Well, it's like there's one of my favorite things to see is the creative like songwriters and stuff will take a just completely random thing, a sound or something they find, and turn it into music in some way. Like there's a video I'll share with people all the time. It's just like a husky sneezing. It's like or whatever, and somebody took that, clipped it down, chopped it really tight, pitched it up a bit, put a like high pass filter onto it, and turned it into a snare drum.
Yeah.
And so it just sounded like psh, 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 psh. And it's just completely different from the original audio. But I love people who can take something like that and turn it into something that it's not. In that, I mean, it's like sound design for music just as much as sound design for games or videos or film or whatever. It's very cool to be able to just completely mangle whatever you're working with. I mean, it's like the classic sound of a breaking bone is not somebody breaking bone. It's like celery.
Yeah, it's celery or cabbage or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I have gained a tremendous amount of respect towards Foley actors working on this, because I've needed to do Foley method acting for a couple scenes in this game, and I listen to the results and I'm like, this doesn't fucking sound good, and I have to do it again, and it's exhausting because you have to do like 60 takes if you want to make like a quote unquote crowd of people, right? So I was in my garage with freaking boots, like my hands were inside boots, and I was like stepping on like wood 2x4s inside the garage with like a bunch of mics around me, and it was cramped space, with a bunch of storage, and it's just like going back to edit it, and I'm just like, this doesn't sound good. My Foley acting wasn't good, and so I had to try again. I had to try to get better. Yeah. So tons of respect to Foley artists. That's that shit is not easy.
Yeah, I think, absolutely.
Like going back to what you were saying about like manipulating sounds and making like things out of them. It's just like I feel like that's what for me is like made me really interested in like planar phonics and samples just in general, just like because I wasn't really, and still I'm not like a synthesis person. Like I appreciate it, but like when I'm presented with like a bunch of just like knobs and oscillators, like my brain just shuts down. But like the fact that I can just like take like a waveform and just like have so many different ways I can like mangle it and everything. Just like honestly, like one of my favorite things to do, and is like, so in RX, Isotope RX, there's this thing called like the replace feature where it's specifically made for like repairing like audio and like taking things out. Like, so if there's like a phone ringing in the background, you can just take that out using the replace feature. But what I like to do is I like to just like randomly drag that around so that it like, because what it does is it kind of like takes your first point that you drag to and then your second point, and then it kind of like blends them together. And so what I like to do is just like use that for like risers, so that like I'll take like the first like transient of like a drum hit, and then I'll drag it back to silence so that it almost like has this really organic sounding, just like and it goes right into the drum. It's really cool. And so like manipulating like samples like that of just like how they shouldn't be is my favorite part about like sampling and planar phonics. It's just like there's so much like I feel like I can do with that, rather than like looking at a bunch of knobs that I have to like really think about. Not to say that's a bad thing, but it's just
there's no wrong way to make music. And it's kind of great.
It's how my brain works.
Learning how to use tools incorrectly is a real pro move.
Well, what led you to like use that tool in that way in that context, Clara? Like what kind of drove you to do that?
I think it was an accident, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think because I was like, let's see. So a few years ago, like I would like really spend a lot of time just like going through like my Zoom samples and like making like bespoke like samples out of them.
Yeah.
And so I would do like a lot of like audio repair stuff. And I think one time I just like accidentally like dragged too far or something, and just like the audio just like messed up, and I was like, wait, that sounds cool though.
I like that.
Let me try that with another. And I tried it with another part. oh, that sounds really cool. And so I like recorded just like me fiddling. Yeah, now I remember. Okay, yeah. Holy shit. You just like unlocked like a whole like memory of me finding this thing out. So like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like there's like some quarters near me. I'm gonna pull out my Zoom, record these quarters, just me messing with them on the table, and then I put that into RX and just like started messing with this replace tool, making like these really weird just like rhythms that had like different like reversed but not reverse sounding like tones to them. I was like, this is so cool.
See, that's some Andrew Huang energy, and I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just manipulating and transforming sounds, and you just like it's fun to find a new fucked up way to like manipulate those sounds, and you almost feel like you kind of like own it, like you feel like you own that sound a little bit. It's like this is it feels like a signature, right?
Yeah.
You found your wax seal, and once you do, like, and for anyone out there listening, like, if you find your wax seal out there, fucking use it. You're going to be recognized instantly for how you use it. And it's so cool to watch people, like, discover that. Like, I would have never thought to use that technique in my life until you told me about it, so.
I'm glad.
Another reason you would never have learned that from some random top pro.
Yeah.
They're not doing that. Well, maybe somebody is, but I mean...
Who
Then,
knows?
but then it becomes industry standard and everyone else is doing it.
Then it becomes an industry secret that they want to keep to themselves.
Yeah, or that.
Exactly,
There's two sides of that coin.
But I mean, you're hanging out with fresh, new, adventurous people gives you that kind of perspective. I'm going to harp on that, but it really is. No, I love that kind of experimentation for sure. I think that's the appeal of synthesis to me. You know, you're talking about playing with like waveforms and stuff. That's like additive synthesis, being able to take the harmonic series, which is like, I think I'm trying to remember what it was. Ben Jordan has a great video on additive synthesis. He talks about how like waveforms are like the pure building blocks of sound. You know, they're little sound atoms, basically. And he said, like, with sine waves, you can recreate any sound you want. But it's kind of more complicated than that. That's kind of like saying, you know, with enough atoms, you could recreate Shakespeare.
Right.
Like, it's, but there is something where when you start learning about the harmonic series and start learning about, like, additive synthesis and how you can manipulate like sine waves and stuff like that, it starts to unlock crazy things, right? Like beginning to understand that like with just enough processing power, you could get the sound of a violin by just stacking sine waves on each other and telling each what they're doing over time. You know, It's crazy that you can get into that kind of stuff. And I love thinking about the fact that you can do so much just by messing with it, just by turning some knobs or putting in some crazy stuff.
Well, that reminds me, like recently I got a new record called Country Moog. I forget who the composer is. Apologies for that. But the album, it didn't age well. It doesn't sound very good. It's pretty terrible sounding. But the intent behind it is what's important, and I respect it a lot for that, is that the originally like the big Moog 1 synthesizer was not really respected among musicians because people didn't understand how it could be used musically. They're just like, it's a beep boop machine. How the fuck am I going to use it? So the person who made Country Moog made a whole bunch of country music with the Moog synthesizer by making it sound like a banjo, making it sound like a choir, making it sound like fucking like a train, like the train whistle, and using it melodically. And it's kind of it was used in kind of a as a commentary towards the naysayers towards like new things in music, new techniques, new instruments, because everyone is just like, you have guitars, you have drums, you have vocals, that's all you got, you have the piano, and people didn't quite understand synthesis at the time, and the lengths that people take it to nowadays are just absolutely wild. You have it used in soundtracks, you have it used to recreate other sounds, you have it used to enhance people's voices, right?
You have it used to create entire songs on a laptop in someone's bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. It's completely nuts when you start really getting into it. But I love that. I love the adventure of that. I love feeling like I can still learn stuff. I mean, I got a fun experiment I'm thinking about right now, which I know I've shown. I think I might have shown both of you, but I've definitely shown Vasily at least.
The VCV rack one?
Yeah. So I created like, I have like a VCV rack, like additive synthesis thing where I've created like the first 64 steps of the harmonic series.
Oh my God.
So I have an oscillator for each one of them, and then I have them all running into like mixers and stuff, and then I can control different parts of the harmonic series in different ways. So I can have it where like the fundamental has a really short envelope, and the envelope gets increasingly longer as you get further along the harmonic series or whatever.
Oh, that's so cool.
So the next experiment that I want to do with this one, I'm going to be putting that patch together before I actually make the video on it, is I want to tune the harmonic series to equal temperament. And I want to see what the harmonic series as a note sounds like in equal temperament and see how much it messes with people to hear the harmonic series tuned.
It's going to sound wrong is what it's going to sound like.
It's going to sound wrong. And the great irony and humor of it is that technically I'm making it correct.
It's still in 440, right? It's still in 440, but it's not going to sound like it's in 440.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just because like the different A's and B's and G's that are like all up there, they're not going to be 44 cents flat anymore.
Right.
You know, and it's like where you can hear the fundamental notes, you know, in equal temperament, and they sound more or less in tune to you. But when you're playing natural notes like that, the harmonic series you get of each of those notes is still in, you know, just intonation. It's still in that like natural harmonic intonation. And so if you tune that to the equal temperament scale, it's going to feel wrong to people, and they're not going to know why, I think. And I mean, I'm very curious to see how it sounds. When I have the experiment finished, I'll absolutely send you some examples of it.
I'd love to hear this.
I'll probably just send you the patch as well you can play with.
Fuck yes.
But I love messing with that kind of thing. It's like, I wonder what it would sound like. It'll probably sound stupid, but that's the fun part.
That's the fun part. It's making the stupid thing not sound stupid, which is a part of a lot of the fun. So
fuck around and find out.
Yeah, fuck around and find out, but in a good way. So,
and we're back. So, little behind the scenes. We took a long break. The podcast was getting to a point where we needed to kind of stretch our legs and everything.
I have coffee.
We have coffee.
Yeah. I don't have coffee, but they do. So yeah, we'd been talking, I think, about just networking sideways, adventure audio and stuff like that. And I'd mentioned that that's one of the things I liked about working with the two of you, because both of you have that mindset. I mean, that's why we did the kegs together. That was a ton of fun.
That was a ton of fun.
Just basically borrowing space from your mom, who was generous enough to give us that garage, which sounds really good, honestly.
No, she's been she's always been really cool with lending us the space as soon as we ask plenty of time ahead. Like it's a big garage with a lot of utility and
I mean, back in high school when we were just like jamming like with your MMA and me on a drum set, she let us like jam in that shack thing, right?
Yes, yeah. She did the separated garage unit, and that was
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was super good. And then and then if we have like any other big projects like coming up soon, I'm sure we use it again. And so it's really good to have like a fallback on that. And I feel very lucky and blessed to have that, be able to have that space.
We could record drums in there. Final because like the process right now for like my workflow is like I'm writing stuff in this apartment, demoing stuff out, and then final recordings will be done elsewhere. And so maybe like that's a place we could do like the final recordings, because that like I feel like Link Up 2 proves that space is a really good place to.
I was telling Vasily in the break that I'd be happy to actually like engineer the drums with you.
Oh hell yeah, of course.
I love recording drums. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. So, and I got some cool mics. Pair that with some of the stuff you two have, and
hell yeah.
Yeah.
And like I've got like my like let's see, I have like two. Like I have an Audio Technica. It's only like $300 or $400, but it was just like a basic drum mic kit. But then I still have that, but I don't use it anymore. I got like an SE Electronics drum mic kit thing that's
Nice.
a little bit nicer. That was that used on Waiting?
I think it was, yeah. I think that was one of the first songs you recorded with the new Sonar drum and mic.
Yeah,
I had like
the
a
Sonar
CAD
drums.
kit, like $120 CAD mic kit as my first drum
Nice.
mic set. Honestly, though, the snare mic from that is still one of my go-tos. I do actually really like that one on snare.
I think I really like the Audio Technica like overheads for like really crisp stuff. Although my cymbals are kind of crisp already, so maybe I don't know. I feel like I'd have to experiment with that again. But yeah. So as far as like the actual kit though, because I got the Sonar kit right before Link Up 2, so Waiting. Oh shit. None of the songs in demo tapes actually have the Sonar kit. It's just the Link Up 2 set that has the Sonar drums.
Is it? Oh my god.
Yeah.
I thought we re-recorded something after Link Up 2. Didn't we not? I thought it was Empty Diary that we re-recorded the drums.
We wanted to, but we just didn't have time.
Fuck. Okay. Shit. I didn't realize that.
Sounds like we have some drum sessions in the future.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. We'll have to
Let me know though. If you do, let me know.
We'll have to figure
Like I
out.
said, I'm
We'll have to
happy
figure out a
engineer.
space that has a similar room tone to the original recordings, because otherwise they'll sound too different, I think.
Honestly, I'm not sure. Like, I feel like it would be fun to like have that like
Try something.
because I feel like that the original version of Empty Diary is like it has its own place, and then like if we were to do like a re-recording, like then it's just like okay, this is the new version. If you like the old version, you can go back to it, but like this is the new version that we're kind of like experimenting and trying like a different sound, like a garage sound, like we would be recording it in a garage, and like
That's true. That's a good point.
I mean, that garage sounds really good, like I said.
It's completely untreated, and it has like a car in it and some
Yeah.
skis, and that's about it. Like, and it sounds
It
good.
doesn't- Like, it doesn't really have the flutter or any of that. It sounds clean, you know?
Which is weird because it's
Yeah.
a rectangular garage, and it's still kind of.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
It definitely has parallel walls, like beyond any shadow of a doubt. It is not trapezoidal in any way.
No,
But
maybe
it
it's like
somehow
the
just-
cabinets that are on the side there.
I don't know. Like, I mean, the floor to the roof makes sense, as I assume is just there's like drainage. If you guys see the keg video, you can see the place I'm talking about. Is there's like drainage in it, so that would make the floors slightly off angle to the ceiling, but that still doesn't explain the walls. You know, I
I think the
don't know.
car maybe like helped a lot. Like it just
Probably.
absorbed or like like reflected the sounds like non-parallel.
Whatever it is, it sounds good.
It worked.
It really
Yeah.
does work. It's incredible how well that space works. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think some drum, maybe like a day of some hard drum sessions, and you know, kind of like saying like put them all together, get all the drums for whatever you want to record, and then if you don't use them, you don't use them. But then you can have that kind of one like cohesive sound or
Yeah.
kind of similar space at least.
What might be fun too is like if we would have to like plan like 4 days to do this, but deep sampling that drum and then like in that space, and then also getting like an IR of it.
Wait.
Oh, I would love to do that.
That would actually be an incredible like songwriting tool, like right now.
Yeah, because
Holy shit.
you could use
mean,
that
let me know.
space. You could use that relative space because A, it's familiar. B, it has kind of like a story and history behind it. And B, like you can take that to your electronic drum set here and kind of like work with that sound. So that might
We
be.
should act. Oh fuck! Maybe we should
Let
actually
me know.
do that.
I'm down.
That
I
actually
can-
might be very.
I can
good
build
for
that.
The songwriting
I
process.
can make that
Shit.
happen.
Okay.
We can absolutely make that happen.
Wow, we just like maybe admit it publicly what we're gonna be doing behind the scenes now.
Yeah.
It's just, for the record, people, if you are not a like record industry or music industry person, this is just how these meetings go. What you've experienced is we just started talking and planning something. I'm gonna leave that in because honestly, I think there's a lot of people who have not experienced that, like genuinely don't and understand that this is how things happen a lot of the times.
I mean,
you just have a conversation like this, and then you start making plans on it.
anything in these parts of like these projects are just like you can't really plan for it. You just kind of like slip onto it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like I used to have a bad habit of like talking about the kind of music I want to make rather than just making it. And it's just like, no one wants to hear anyone talk about music.
No, I mean, Toby and I met because we were working, I had some friends who were in a band or they were trying to be in a band, and they were looking for a guitarist, and they were, they bring a guy in and the guy would leave, and they bring a guy in, and Toby was one of the guys they brought in, and he and I hit it off, and I eventually got him into URM until he eventually worked for them. Mm-hmm. This podcast brought to you by URM Academy. They're not sponsoring me, but they should.
Hey.
The number of people I have convinced to join URM, I should be getting an affiliate link by now.
Sponsor Kiko, please, URM.
Yeah, for real. Well, my next guest is one of the founders, so that's going to be fun too. No, what was I going to say? So the band that I met him in, they were doing a lot of like, they would send some like lyrics, and then nothing would happen. And it was one of those, like, the reason the guitarists were always leaving is because they weren't putting music. They were just talking, like you were saying, they were talking about the kind of music they want to make. Like, what if we did something kind of like Gojira? I want to make an album that sounds really like Soil Work or whatever, but they weren't making the music.
Right.
And my old band did the same thing.
You need to just get in the studio and play. That's what you need to do. Just shut the fuck up and play. And I had to learn that. I was very stubborn.
So
I used to talk. I was just constantly talking, oh, we should do it like this. We should use this kind of stuff. No, just fucking start. Just start working, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, your sound is going to happen naturally as you just do your thing.
If you try to force it, it's going to sound bad.
Well, it's like I mean, the amp thing and stuff. The AC30 that you got back there, really, especially that. There's a lot of those like classic guitars. Like, everyone's like, oh man, how do I get the Angus Young sound or whatever? And it's like, Angus Young just bought whatever amp and guitar was available to him, or got it from his parents or whatever, and he just played it and learned how to sound good on that because he was playing guitar. He didn't sit out there and buy like 50 amps and find his sound. He played a lot, had his sound, bought an amp, and learned how to sound good on it, which was the AC30.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective, like thinking about like when I was looking at amps with RJ and Vasily, like back in 2020, of just like, okay, what we're going to buy here is like, it's going to be, because we all were in agreement, like we wanted a more live sound, like we were initially using bias for like the guitar tracks, but we were like, okay, if we feel like we need an actual amp, and so like we like settled on Orange. Like that was like one of the first like manufacturers that we were thinking about, because of course like the pillows.
Yeah, the pillows use the Orange. Yeah,
great choice. Orange is awesome.
I think they go between Orange and Marshall, but like the actual like studio recordings were on like Orange amps.
Yeah,
and so like I got that and was like kind of like, it was almost like a shot in the dark, because I was still like unsure if I would be like super happy with it, but like it felt like I learned how to use it and make the sound like that we wanted. Like, and so like it feels like whatever you get, you'll just find how to use it effectively. And like and going back also to like not like just talking about music but actually doing it. It's just like, if you remember, Vasily, like kind of the moment that we were kind of locked in that unbeatable sound was like Empty Diary.
That was the one. That was the song.
Yeah, it was like, that was like, let's see, that was like mid 2019 if I remember correctly.
It was. I thought it was. No, yeah, it was mid 2019. You're totally right. Yeah.
Wow.
And so like, and that was like a lot of just like, and for me personally, like a lot of calls for decel are just like, okay, we're thinking about like this sort of like song type, this sort of like mood, and just like, yeah, that's great. And it's hard for me personally to like articulate like what I'm thinking about. And so like usually I'm just like, okay, I have a general idea. And so what my thing is just like, I need to just go in and do it myself, because like even if I'm like working with someone, like I like working with people, but it's more like we've kind of established like our thing where like a lot of times we'll like switch places. Like one of us is controlling Ableton for a bit, and then we switch places, and then the other one is controlling Ableton a bit. And it feels like that works for me because like I know what I want like in my head, and like I like playing around. Like I can't tell someone what to do, and so
Yeah.
having that like exploration and like finding that sound over time was like, I think goes back into like, you don't really like talk about music. It's just like you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't talk about music, you do it. And it's like if you're in a group, you kind of have to trust each other for the process. You throw them a block of marble and you have them chisel at it, and you kind of just watch and you bounce off of that idea if they hand it back to you. It's just kind of like it's a big trust process because that's how you get your sound. You got to trust their years of expertise and learning and strategy, and then their ability to improvise. It's like you just got to trust that. And if you fight it, then you get something that you end up not liking, or just something that doesn't get finished. And and that does happen sometimes, right? Like you not every single piece of production is perfect or perfect yet, but yeah.
I mean, going back to the band. So again, like I said, my band was also guilty of like, standing around talking about the sound we wanted more than actually doing it. And I was really the worst offender. But it is one of those things where I've learned over the years, honestly, that starting a band is a lot less about finding the people who want to play the same style of music as you, and a lot more about finding people that you can actually work with. Because you can work around each other's styles. And if you can find people you can work with, generally a part of being able to work with each other is being flexible with each other's styles. On some level, obviously you don't want to go like too crazy unless that's the intention or the goal. But, it's one of those like, if they're into metalcore and you're into doom metal or something, like you might be a bit off the mark for each other. But if you two click and like really vibe right and have the same kind of workflow and ethic, and like you strengthen each other in different ways, you're probably going to get a lot further than finding a dude who likes exactly the same doom bands as you.
Yeah.
That actually makes me think. So like the person that I got to do the guitar solo I'm waiting for, because like I wrote a solo that was way too hard for me to play. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this. So I know this wonderful guitarist that I've known since high school. His name is Andrew Cleveland, right? And like we like our musical tastes like at the time like of meeting each other were pretty similar. Like we were both into like progressive rock and like classic rock and stuff.
Nice.
But like now it's interesting how our musical tastes are so different. But we still really love working together because there's that chemistry. Like right now, like I'm super into like more like pop, punk stuff. He does like punk stuff, but like he's deep into like super just like distorted, just like death grip stuff, like at the moment. But like he'll send me something that is just like super distorted and just like angry, very angry music. He'll be like, "Hey, do you want to do something with this?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" And so I'll just like incorporate my own style of just like, okay, I'm gonna add like some jazz chords in here. I'm gonna add like some EP in here and see how it sounds. And it's just like we get these wild sounding tracks. Oh God, I want to finish them so much because they're just so wild sounding. But yeah, like it's just like, I mean, again, like such different styles of music, but like both of us just gel together, like because we're just like seeing what each other does. So
I mean, that's
fucking awesome.
That's how you get really cool new genres anyway, being able to like combine those styles naturally and work off each other, and like being a metal guy and saying, I want a rapper, I want someone to like rap over this song, and getting a new metal band or something, or being a jazz person and getting somebody who's going to be like really, really cool at whatever, like rock guitar, and then getting some kind of fun, weird, like funky fusion stuff going, and, being a synth person and finding something like finding a composer and being able to get this like big, like, Bach meets the modern day and having a whole arrangement behind some really cool sense. Like, you get cool stuff like that by just, sharing ideas with people who aren't like creatively on the same page as you, just by, vibing with each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah. It's and it's, I really want to see like the behind the scenes of certain bands like Hacken, right? Like Hacken is like one of my favorite like jazz progressive rock bands, and I really want us to see like what the backgrounds of all the musicians there and like how they, their history together and like how they met. And it's just like, not any for a particular reason of like self-reflection. It's just, how the fuck did this happen in the first place? That's really interesting to me. And it's just like, it's like, how do you make a song like Cockroach King, which is like one of my all-time favorite jazz rock songs of all time? It's just, it's incredible. And it's like, what was happening between everyone that let you make that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bloody Pineapples, our band, is a great example of that kind of just mad confusion. It's like, we got like main guys in the band and early on guys and all that. Like, we have dudes who disagree on some of their favorite bands and stuff. Like, I mean, Deftones is one of my favorite bands, for example. Toby does not like Deftones. He doesn't care. He can't get into them, And then, it's like we got guys who are more into pop punk. We got guys who are like really into the more like classic thrash style and stuff. We got guys who think Gojira is sick, and we got guys who think Gojira is boring. It's like, it's one of those like, but when we sit down and just start putting our pieces together, it doesn't really matter. We start putting those together and we start finding things that we click with in each other's writing. And I mean, sometimes there's disagreements, like the intro to the record is actually getting reworked a bunch, but I mean, it's one of those things where if you're an adult and civil about it, you just, if you don't like it, then you deal with it. And if you do like it, then,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you got to put your ego aside and like
100%. Yeah.
And
100%.
if there's something that immediately doesn't work, you kind of just have to accept that and then try something else, and just find something that you both like agree on. And that's sometimes it's pretty hard to let go of something that you enjoy, or you put a lot of thought into making. But that's kind of art in general. Like you're gonna have to scrap some stuff.
I mean, sometimes you'll have a song and it's going a certain way and you're really into it, and bunch of the other guys try something else and the rest of the band agrees that they like that more than the thing. And like, I mean, that's going on for us right now. I got a track that, there's a bunch of stuff that got reworked, and it was like, I liked one of the part, not the whole thing, but there's like one specific part of it that I preferred the original version of, is I thought that it like built a better tension and stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't write that song for context, but Toby and Jake were kind of playing around with it, and they rewrote all the guitar parts. And the like guy who originally wrote the song, he listened to it and he decided that he liked what they had done for that one part more. And so that's what we're going with, and that's it. It's one of those like, I can't sit here and fight for it a bunch, because it's one of those like, okay, I mean, I think that like those few measures sounded better this way, but if the songwriter agrees with the guys who are playing with it that it sounds better the other way, then there's no point in getting bent out of shape about it. I think it's just the creative process. That's how it goes.
I think like a healthy way to go about it too is just like, if someone is suggesting something new over a part that's already written, get yourself in a mindset where you like pretend to forget that part existed in the first place, and treat the new suggested way as it being the original. Yeah. And then once that process is done, you can compare the two and see how everyone feels about it. Yeah. Some people may go back and say, no, I actually prefer the original.
That's making me, that's just making me think of like what we're working on Unbeatable right now. Like, I'm not going to say like what we're working on, but we're working on like a song that was written a while ago, but now we're like putting it into this sequence where we might have to like change the song around, or we will. But like, I love the like original arrangement of this song. Like, I don't really want to change it, but from what I've like seen of like where this sequence goes, we might have to change it, and that's like up in the air. And so it's just like I have to like be impartial, just like, okay, what exactly will fit this sequence that we're writing for, instead of just like trying to like make this fit into this one arrangement.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to work for each other. One can't work for another. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy process, right? And it's like it's kind of hard for it to come naturally. Sometimes it does, and most of the time it doesn't. But there's kind of an art in figuring out that part of the process too in itself. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But I mean, put your ego aside. You were talking about, again, like listening as a new track. Anytime we get a new track part like that or whatever, and I mean, honestly, most of the times I get a new track, usually what I like to do is I like to put it on and do something else. I like to have it on in the background for my first listen, because I want it to kind of tell me what my impression of it is when I'm not paying attention. I want to either get hooked into something, where I'm like, I don't know, playing solitaire or whatever. Mm-hmm. I want to be like sitting there playing solitaire with the music in the background, hear a part, and stop what I'm doing to go listen to that part. Or I want to get a feel of kind of the mood the song puts me in when I'm not paying attention. Like I want to know what the song does to me in a passive mood before I can start listening to it actively and then thinking about it in that way. And I find that usually when I do that, I have a pretty good idea of what I like in a song and what I don't. I mean, that's the same with a lot of records. I usually like my first listen to a record to actually be a passive listen.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like,
actually, I actually find myself doing that too. I passively listen to something, and if I'm like, wait, nothing bothered me about that, I will dive deep with like fucking dentist needle and listen to it hyper critically.
Yeah.
And that's how I get very obsessed with certain songs.
And likewise,
The Sun, the Moon, and the Stars in particular is one of my favorite death metal songs.
Yeah. And likewise, like I said, like, when things hook me, when I'm listening to it, and I'm like, Minecraft is usually my thing with new records, as I just find Minecraft super zen, I'll put that on and I'll put on a record in the background. And I know I'm going to like a record if I find myself like sitting still listening to it or stopping what I'm doing to go back to a certain part, like of a riff or a breakdown or, like a cool kind of, a lick or something. Like I hear something and I go, wait, go back.
Oh my God, you're awakening more memories from me now, because like I literally did that with so when Minecraft was still like very like new, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. I was like first getting into Porcupine Tree as well.
Oh,
and so
yes.
like I remember listening to Deadwing for the first time while playing Minecraft. I remember stopping during like arriving somewhere but not here. I was just like, holy shit, this is amazing. What the hell?
Man, that's an experience. Yeah, I love being able to kind of do that, because it, like I said, it kind of gives me an idea of like whether or not something's going to stick with me and in what ways. I find I kind of have two types of musical experience. Like I have the passive music and I have the active music. And the bands, like the passive music is music that I'll put on in the background when I'm doing stuff. It's stuff that like either helps me focus or helps me relax, or like it, it improves the experience of whatever I'm doing. And it's music that I just like to vibe out to, Yeah. And it's not a case that music is not as good as active music. It's a case that like it's for a different mood. It's for a different mindset that I'm in. And then active music is the stuff that I like get excited about. Like I listen to it and I just like, I want to move. I want to mosh. I want to like, throw my hands up or whatever. That's the active. And then I find that my favorite bands are bands that do both to me, like Hypnos or, like Tool's a good one for that sometimes. Like they've got that vibe energy, but then they'll hit you with something that makes you want to like get up and like pay attention sometimes, They'll get you with one of those like really good bass riffs or something. And like, I really like when a band can hit me both ways for sure. But Yeah, like when I listen to it the first time, I like to get an idea of what kind of experience I'm going to have with it first. And then from there, I engage with it in whatever way it feels like it's going to affect me the most,
Well,
you know?
well, it's good to have just like a you kind of can arrange your music and type like kind of like a liquor shelf, right? What's your top shelf stuff for like special occasions? What's your middle shelf stuff for when you're just casually listening? What's your bottom shelf stuff when you just like kind of don't give a fuck, you know, when you're just like need noise but don't want to particularly like engage with it?
Everyone's top, middle, and bottom shelf now.
Oh God, you're like making me think. You two go first while I think about that.
So right now, Hypnos with 5 instead of an S. It's a French sort of like art prog metal band that does a lot of like cinematic stuff. Definitely my favorite right now and has been for a very long time. Absolutely top shelf. I will always be in the mood for that band. Man, the other stuff really depends on... It depends on my mood, but it also depends on like the day, because the stuff on those shelves moves around all the time. Like, man, I've been listening to Slay Squad lately, which is this like kind of new metal revival type thing that's going on. I've been listening to like the new Devin Townsend lately, which is really... Devin Townsend feels like sipping music.
Yeah,
if
it
we're
does.
using the alcohol
It's
analogy.
like a fine bourbon.
Yeah, it is like an aged whiskey or something. It's very classy, and you drink it slowly.
And it's very intense if you have a lot at once. Though.
Yes,
Like sometimes
yes.
it's just too overstimulating.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then, oh man, I've been... I was rewatching a playthrough of the game Night in the Woods recently. So I've been listening.
Love that game.
It's a... I see, my blind asses cannot do all the reading, but I like visual novels. I like to watch other people play, because I love to vibe with whatever they're getting out of it and stuff. But and also not have to read. But I've been listening to the soundtrack for that, for example, because that's been in my head recently, and I've been in a kick of that in general, of like watching YouTubers play visual novels and start read or interact with or whatever. So like ones that have interesting music, I'll gravitate towards that recently. And then, so I mean, it really depends, because it's like a year from now, I probably won't be listening to that, but I don't know. And then of course I just got like my average like Wage War, you know, I've been putting that on a lot lately, or whatever. I've been in a pretty heavy music mood lately. I mean, heavy music's my thing most of the time anyway, but I've been in a specifically very heavy music mood. And then on top of that, I've been listening to a lot of like weird kind of dark Middle Eastern vibe. I guess you could... I'm trying to think what the style might be called, but there's an artist called Amanati, I think is what they are, or how that's pronounced. But yeah, it's like, it's really slow. It's got a lot of like harmonic minor vibes going on. The vocal melodies, when they're there, are kind of haunting. It's got a lot of like really deep bass, you know. So I've been listening to a lot of that too. And that's kind of... I think that's kind of my middle shelf right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Bottom shelf.
With your bottom shelf, just kind of like, who gives a fuck? I'm just gonna have this on
yeah,
in the
my
background.
bottom shelf is just put my iPod on shuffle. You know,
just something you're doing while you're like vacuuming or something.
yeah, just sort of. I mean, like YouTube has all these like playlists or whatever. Another one, middle shelf, that's been getting a lot of play is a band called Scratch 21. Is like a pop punk band. They got a song called Aliens, which I've been really really vibing with lately, and then really an amusing one called Sorry Jack. So like that's kind of been like a vibe. They got kind of like a modern Blink-182 revival kind of edge going on. So that's been kind of middle. And then like I said, like YouTube has those like suggestion playlists where you just like click on one based on a song you've listened to recently. It'll just play whatever the hell. So yeah, I mean, I've been just putting on like, I'll see like Run the Jewels, like, oh, I'll just click on that and I'll just let it play. Run the Jewels is fantastic, by the way. Really love that. And I miss Sac de la Roca.
I remember listening to their first 3 albums a long time ago. Yeah, they're really good. Right.
I was on a Rage Against the Machine kick recently, too.
Oh, nice.
So,
Nice.
It seems like an appropriate time. So...
Yeah, I feel like that's like grabbing the aged wine from the basement and pulling it out for
for this occasion specifically.
This seems topical at the moment.
This wine seems appropriate for this event.
Yeah. What about you, Clara?
Okay, so I was thinking about that when you were explaining yours, Kiko. So again, I feel like it depends on like not the day, but mostly like what phase I'm in, because I go through like different musical phases of I'm obsessed with this, and like so right now like my thing is like my top shelf right now is like an artist named Alice Fibulu. She does amazing, like just almost like her albums are like a little bit different each album, and so the album
I love that.
Yeah,
I always love that.
And so the album that I listen to, oh god, I'm so bad with album names.
That's a mood.
It has like a black and white cover or something. It has the song Dusk on it. But that's the album that's like in my top shelf right now. It's got like such a unique vibe. It's so like melancholy, but it's also like super uplifting, and I've maybe cried a couple of times while listening to it. Who knows? But like it's super
totally
super good. And then there's also this other artist that a friend of mine got me into. I think her name is like Moyu, like MYU ZUI or something like that. I might have to like look that up before we end the podcast and actually correct myself. But yeah, she has like an amazing EP called like A Beautiful Thing Vomits. I know, weird name, but it's actually really incredible. It's really like
sounds like a new metal album title.
It's not new metal actually. It's like complete opposite. It's like super experimental. Like to me, it feels like, what if like you had like, it feels like almost like experimental Steven Wilson if Steven Wilson was a girl. It's like
I dig that.
Super good, and I
That's
adore
awesome.
it. She just came out with a new album, and it's super good.
Nice.
I need to listen to that more. So that's like my top shelf right now. Like if I'm like going to bed, that is like the stuff that I listen to while I'm like falling asleep. Like I don't listen to that while I'm like showering or like in the background or anything. It's like this is music that means a lot to me right now.
You put that on to pay attention to.
Yeah. As far as like middle shelf stuff, I am mentally ill now and super obsessed with K-pop. So like New Jeans, there is not a single New Jeans song that I'm just like, this is mid. This is just like every single fucking New Jeans song is
just
amazing.
take it all and inject it right into your veins.
Yeah, it's super good. It like while I'm showering, it gets me pumped up and whatnot. I've been listening to what other like I guess mid-shelf stuff I've been listening to. Just a lot of other like K-pop, like Twice, aespa, BTS. Jimin released a new album that was really good. Let's see. So I guess that's kind of like my mid-shelf stuff is like K-pop.
Yeah, you were playing that when we walked in at first, and I was actually kind of vibing with that. So
oh, nice.
Yeah.
No, that was really nice.
And I guess like my bottom shelf stuff that I've been listening to is like, not that it's bad, but it's just like lo-fi hip hop or like just synthwave stuff. Like because it's just like it doesn't have any lyrics usually. It's just like it's just the vibe that I can just put on in the background, and just like there's like it just drowns out the silence when I don't want silence. But like I don't have to pay attention to it, and it's just like that nice, just like okay, this is just something to.
It's
like, keep
funny.
Yeah,
it's funny. I find like my bottom shelf often includes a lot of my top shelf. It's kind of like I said. That's why it's such a mood thing. You know, there's a lot of my bottom shelf that would never be on the top shelf, but there's definitely a lot of top shelf that's like, you know, I will sip on it, but sometimes I'm just gonna grab it. You know, when I'm just
it's
like,
it's your comfort beverage.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's like I have like Devin Townsend will be like on the bottom shelf, even though Devin Townsend's also on the top shelf right now. But the one that actually you mentioned like just kind of putting stuff in the back, like stuff you don't have to pay as much attention to or focus on. Another thing that makes my bottom shelf a lot is what am I thinking? Like I've been listening to a lot of UK drill, or at least the UK drill style, but I've been listening to a lot of stuff that's like foreign, I like not in English. So it's one of those, I'm not focused on the lyrics or what they're saying because I don't like understand them. And one of them, for example, is Vasily. I think I showed it to you at least. It's a it was a channel. I don't know if the guy actually goes by this, but it was Hip Hopologist, and it was an Iranian like drill artist. And I've been jamming a lot of that lately, a lot of his different tracks. And it's like, it's really good, just like cool music to listen to. But of course, like I don't speak Farsi, so I don't know what he's saying, except for the odd places where you get like English slang and stuff, which is always a really odd experience listening to like foreign language, like drill or metal or whatever, and hearing what like slang just kind of jumps across or whatever. Like I think there was an Egyptian rap song I used to listen to back in the day that would just like casually drop Super Nintendo.
My God.
Like
It's just out of nowhere. That's great.
It's because it was like there's no like Arabic word for Super Nintendo. It's just Super Nintendo.
It's
that's the brand.
Borrowed language. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like it's always really interesting. But one thing that's really weird is one of the songs, oh man, I lost my train of thought on that. But yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's like, it's really fun to like put on in the background because I don't have to like focus on or engage in the lyrics because I don't speak the language, but I can still enjoy the music, you know, and I like stuff like that for that as well. It's also, I'm also just really fascinated by like the way that certain sounds, you know, translate across cultures and stuff. Like, I found a drill, I don't know if it was an artist or a group. I think it's just an artist from like Tibet, you know? And it's like, what does drill music sound like in Tibet? Because this is like street music from London. What did Tibetans do with street music from London? You know, but it's just really fascinating because it's a style that's permeated, but the culture is going to translate differently to different places. And I always love seeing how that changes from place to place. Yeah.
Okay. Before you do your thing, I wanted to make sure, like I corrected myself. So the artist that I said was, let's see, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Muizyu. It's Muyzyu, and her album that she came out with, Rotten Bun for an Eggless Century, is super, super good. So if anyone wants to have a good album to listen to while they're going to sleep, there you go.
I'll have to check it out myself.
It's very good.
I have not checked it out. As far as the cabinet goes, some of the top shelf stuff shares with the bottom. That's mostly like nostalgia music, right? Some of the nostalgia music I've listened to. Let's see. I'll actually kind of start on the bottom and go to work to my way towards the top. So on the bottom is definitely songs like nostalgia songs that I'm just like not crazy about today. Is like stuff like Scooter, stuff like Disturbed, stuff like Camelot. Freaking Rhapsody of Fire, Blind Guardian, stuff like that. It's stuff that I don't necessarily
Ocean Avenue, and
it's stuff that I don't necessarily gel with and love today. But you know, if I'm just like, fuck it, I don't really want to critically listen to anything, I'll put them on. You know,
you don't hate it either. It's just like, you know, you're in a different place stylistically, and it's
exactly
just like, when you listen to it, you're like, oh man, I got good memories of this.
It's like it's like the bottles that are 25% full, and you're like, oh, I gotta finish it. You know, at some point where you feel like you're wasting it. But
you've had enough from them, but you've not finished them yet.
Exactly, it's stuff you're a little tired of. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, how you word it. Middle shelf stuff is kind of like I would say like a lot of like trance, like Ferry Corsten, Armin van Buuren, like those big ultra like festival anthemic, you know, trance artists that grew up with, like, you know, Paul van Dyk, Yahel. We even got like a bunch of like psy trance artists like Liquid Soul or fucking Asterix. Like a lot of those have made up like my last like 6 years of just like sound design, like heart pumping energy, nothing but just kind of like this like primal feeling of just like being overtaken by sound. And I'm not listening critically. I am just vibing and being angry or sad or just like excited over it. It is extremely like just energy. That's it. That's all it is. But as soon as we get to the top shelf, that's stuff I'm like really focusing on, really stuff I'm paying attention to. The subtext, the context, the intent behind the music is what I'm really caring about here. You know, the story behind everything. Honestly, recently you introduced me to binary code, and that's like really resonated with me recently. Like the whole story behind that like impacted me, and their recent stuff is really really good. And then, you know, I mentioned Psytrance and being in the middle shelf, but I on the top shelf, I do have Infected Mushroom with all of their, especially like one of the more recent songs called Lost in Space, which has gone in a completely different direction. You have like traditional Hebrew chanting.
Traditional
herbal chanting. Hebrew chanting.
Some of that at
That's
Whole
just
Foods.
psychedelic music.
Yeah, Hebrew chanting. The whole song's in Hebrew, and it's just like this kind of like like down tempo, like psychedelic stuff that's still clearly in their style, but it is the translated lyrics aren't insanely, you know, creative, but they are. It's still fun, where it's just a person that is literally lost and floating in space, and you know, you could maybe interpret it as like people who are lost, can't find their vision, anything like that. But you know, I always like kind of figuring out the intent behind that song. The entirety of the album Tarot by Aether Realm, I will always go back to. I've probably listened to that album probably 30 plus times at this point. This is one of the best concept albums I've ever heard, and probably like, I don't know if I like it or Octavarium better, Octavarius by Dream Theater better.
It's Octavarium.
Octavarium, yeah, sorry. And their use of like motifs and conceptualizing it itself, because they're both both of those albums are extremely similar in terms of meta commentary. They're both about making that album. Octavarium and Tarot are both about what goes into making this album, what kind of phases you go through, what kind of things you're referencing. Aether Realm leans less into what kind of things they're referencing and more about utilizing leitmotifs and motifs and repeating like old themes throughout the songs, while also introducing completely new ways of telling this similar messages. And it's a beautiful, beautiful album. Swallow the Sun I got into recently thanks to a buddy of mine, Sterling.
We were jamming them on the ride down.
Yeah, and they're like, that's my sad music. That's shit is bleak, shit is sad. I'm going to vibe with this because this music and I understand each other. You know, that's my crying music. Xanthocrid. One second. Xanthocroid. Sorry. Of Earth and Axon, particularly, that album is fantastic. It's like a cosmic death doom album, mostly melodic. It's really, really wonderful, and I love the dynamics. Another concept-ish album. I really, really recommend you listen to the whole thing from start to finish. It's a beautiful, beautiful album. And I have other stuff too on my top shelf, particularly what was the album called? One second here, give me just a moment. The reason I'm struggling with this is because it has a whole ton of it's a Bon Iver album. What was the album name? Hang on here just a moment. 22 A Million, that's what it's called. 22 A Million is like one of the most experimental albums I recently listened to, and it took me a while to kind of understand what was going on.
Right.
I listened to like the first like 5 songs and I'm just like, I don't know if I like this, but I listened to the whole album a second time and I'm like, no, I get this. I understand what's happening. Is I really, really suggest you guys listen to it.
I love slow burn albums like that. The album where like you got kind of an impression of it the first time, but if you can give me an album where I'm like getting something new out of it 5 years later, the 300th listen or whatever, that's an album that's going to live with me for the rest of my life.
Yep.
Like,
You know what? Sorry, now that you say
please.
that, I have to add something to my top shelf. It's both of the Avalanche's albums,
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
especially Wildflower, because like I listened to Wildflower like immediately after it came out. I was just like enthralled by it because like I was obsessed with Since I Left You like in 2012 when I was getting into Plunderphonics, and then just
Right.
hearing them make a new album like almost 20 years later, I was like, this is so good. And then last year, like that album meant so much to me, like just going through a lot, and just like then I heard like new things, like there were certain things that were like recontextualized, and I was just like hearing just new things, and just like it was like my 50th time listening to that album, but it was just like super, super good. And just the way that that album flows is incredible, because it's like I never want to like listen to one song from that album at a time. I'm just like, I guess I'm listening to like
The whole
you're
album.
committed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another top shelf one for me is it's actually 3 of them, but it's 3 of them with a common thread. Fear Before the March of Flames, which is again one of my all-time favorites, and previous guest Adam, who is the tying thread. He was one of the guys from Fear Before. Went on to All Human with Brian from Trophy Scars, and then Orbs with a handful of guys. I'm trying to remember. I know Dan Briggs from Between the Buried and Me is in there, but I'm trying to remember who some of the other people in that band were. But right around the like Orbs and like All Human stuff, Adam ended up coming out. And it was the same sort of thing where it's like I was already a huge fan of all of his music, and I ended up like re-listening to it in a totally different light, like getting that chance to like hear all this stuff that formed and shaped me as a person growing up, like that, like you were saying with Swallow the Sun, that like sad music, this gets me. Turns out part of the reason for that is that we share a common best album ever written, sad music, Counting Crows, August and Everything After. But the like re-listening to it with that context like completely reshaped my appreciation of all of it. It was like, oh man, I love that too, when you can like get a new piece of the puzzle or get a new piece of context, one where like in your own life or in the life of the people who made it, and you can go back and enjoy it in a totally new light. That's also really awesome. It's like rediscovering the record.
Yeah.
I think music's just generally a really powerful tool that can let you be more vulnerable too.
Yes.
Because it's like, you know for a fact that if you go to a concert and as soon as you start warming up to the crowd, you're going to act like yourself at some point. You're going to be lost in the crowd, or you're just going to act like, like I act like a fucking idiot in the crowd sometimes, and I'm just being, my own goofy self. I'm just being,
Right.
Yeah.
I think, thinking about that, like, so like, to me, like last year, like seeing Porcupine Tree was such a special thing, right? Because like Porcupine Tree was my thing in high school. I loved Porcupine Tree.
Such a good band.
But it wasn't my favorite concert that I went to last year. And I was like really surprised by that, because my favorite concert that I went to last year was Metric, because it was a smaller venue, like way smaller. It was just like in just a regular medium-sized venue. I was up like near the stage, and like there's Emily Haynes just like rocking out and just like playing to the crowd, and like the crowd around me was like into it as well. Like it wasn't just a bunch of people just standing around just like with their arms folded and just being like, oh wow, that's very, very good. That's very good. It was like literally,
really
it was just
nice. Add 9 chord there.
yeah, exactly. It was like there was people at this metric show just dancing and having a good time and just vibing and just like we're just here to like listen to really cool music and have fun, and that was my favorite concert of the year.
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, and I think too it was also because like I guess Metric was also another band that I loved in high school. I guess that's another maybe that is another top shelf of just like everything by Metric. I love Metric.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, their recent album, like I really, really like doom scrolling. Like, obviously, it's very topical, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Yeah,
really-
yeah.
the compositionally and just like the feel of everything feels like. I wasn't always into metric in high school. Originally in high school, so it wasn't my type of music. But I'm starting to click with them a lot more now.
Right.
Basically, just based on their
Yeah.
like their messaging, their composition. It's I'm
It
starting.
feels like their new album kind of combines like what they wanted to do with. Now I'm nerding about metric, but whatever. It sounds like they're trying, like they're melding, like, because like Pagans in Vegas was like the super modular like synthy album, and then they went back to their kind of roots stuff, like just pure rock, like synth rock with Art of Doubt in 2018. And so like this new album feels like they're kind of combining those two, and it's just like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I love when artists are able to do that, where they're still able to shit. Even like MGMT is just like the perfect, like, we have our own style. There's this whole trend of pop. We're popular
Yeah.
enough to shape the trend of pop. We don't want to be pop, so we're going to be anti-pop, but we're still going to sound like MGMT. And they're just like, they're, in my opinion, the best kind of pop is anti-pop.
Hell yeah.
I have a considerable amount of respect and jealousy for the artists who can do a different style every album and still be them.
Yeah.
Like Devin
It's-
Townsend.
Yeah, like Devin Townsend. Like, yeah, fuck, shit.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. Even like Tears for Fears did that, like
Yeah.
back in the day. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were pulling out different stuff and constant bangers out.
Heck, even Muse in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
They've
Muse-
definited bounced around the style.
Hell yeah.
the
Fucking
style
Muse's
spectrum.
Their new
newest
album
is
is so
insane.
crazy.
It's
I love it.
fucking insane.
I think that might be another top shelf then, maybe.
I don't know if Muse is my top shelf because it's like I haven't.
That one
I
kind of
haven't.
depends on my mood.
I haven't
honestly.
listened to them
It's-
critically enough.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like for me it's passive.
Yeah,
so I
it's-
guess
Yeah.
maybe that's like my middle or bottom
Yeah,
shelf.
that's kind of my middle too. Honestly, it's Muse.
It's funny. One of the ones that's actually on my bottom shelf, one of the like YouTube ones where I just like see it and click on it and it'll just play whatever's suggested after, is an Infected Mushroom song that you showed me a couple months ago, like last time we hung out.
Which one?
It was actually a remix. It was somebody else's remix of an Infected Mushroom song. It was
Oh, the you are
Yeah,
fucked.
Yeah, that one.
You are so
The
fucked, so fucking fucked. Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
the
yeah.
copyright strike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that one pops up in my feed a lot as one of those like YouTube recommends or whatever. So I'll just put that one on the background, let whatever it suggests off that, which is great because my YouTube recommends is so broken, so broken. It's I think I told Goji when I had him on the podcast a couple episodes ago, is like Desire, the latest. Well, actually, not the latest, like Currents now. One of the latest Goji EPs was on that, and it would pop up, and I would like play that, and then it would jump to some really heavy ass shit like Meth Witch or something.
My God.
And so it'd be like, you know, jamming out to these like chill kind of slow vibes with Desire or something like that, and then it'll fucking switch over to this like super dense, like just noise fucking like deathcore or whatever you would classify Meth Witch as, and then it'd be like Lorna Shore, and then it would be fucking Devin Townsend, then it'd be whatever. It's so all over the place. I love it. I love breaking the algorithm with that stuff.
I love it. Yeah, I love just when the algorithm doesn't know like what the fuck you want. Like that feels like it feels like that's for me for Tidal, because that's how I like discover a lot of new music. Is like I'm gonna just make it clear I do not like Spotify, so Tidal I guess is lesser evil. So I just like, okay, fine, whatever. Jay-Z,
Use
fine,
Napster.
fucking get my money. I don't care.
Napster pays the artists even more than anyone else.
Yeah.
In the
does?
greatest twist of irony you could
Really?
possibly
That's-
imagine,
I thought- well-
Napster is actually one of the highest paying.
Yeah, they have the
ones.
highest CPR at the moment. Like,
Yeah.
Interesting. I
It's
thought
nuts.
Or CPM,
Tidal
yeah.
was like with their like.
I think Tidal's number
$20
2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was on their like premium thing that paid like an extra like 10% to the most
Yeah.
listened artists or something. I don't know.
To be fair, though, more people are on Tidal, so I don't,
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know anyone who's streaming on Napster. But
Right. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just it just feels like because Tidal has like daily discoveries rather than weekly discoveries, and like I swear to God, it changes like every day. Like I swear, like even this morning. So like this morning compared to yesterday, like yesterday it was just all like K-pop. every single song was K-pop. I was like, okay, fine, I'm listening to K-pop today. And today, while I was like getting ready, I was like, oh, it's all just like lo-fi chill beats now. Okay, great. I'm
love
totally
that.
okay with that though.
I love that. Yeah, no, it's I love just putting stuff on shuffle and discovering new things on YouTube, on Apple Music or whatever, just hanging out with friends and having that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Vasily mentioned Sterling is a mutual friend of ours who's awesome for sharing cool new music and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious for the two of you, what is some of your favorite music for video games? Since video games are such a different experience.
Oh boy, we're about to go into some deep shit.
So I've had a huge roguelite phase from high school all the way until probably, like a couple of years ago, or kind of like got burnt out on the genre, but still greatly appreciate it. Chris Christodoulou, the composer behind the Risk of Rain soundtrack, he was composing the Risk of Rain 1 soundtrack, and they were working on that game. And I remixed one of the final boss themes, and this was a long time ago. It doesn't hold up great today, but
Right.
what I really like about that phase is being able to just communicate with him and say, hey, here's a remix. We were able to hit it off a little bit and talk to each other kind of about making music.
Nice.
And he made the Risk of Rain 2 soundtrack, which just improved on everything so much. And there is a song near the end of the game called the what was it fucking called?
The.
Just
the. No other words needed. It's just the. It's just like you say.
It's The Rain, formerly known as Purple, which is a direct reference to Prince's Purple Rain, which has a very, very similar riff to that song, which is the
formerly known as Prince.
It has that riff going on, and it uses it so well in his own style while still paying homage to Prince, and it's fucking wonderful.
That's awesome.
There's this other song where you're fighting a big crab and it has this insane saxophone solo. It's fucking crazy.
That's such
Yeah.
I love that sentence. You're fighting a big crab, there's a saxophone solo. That's brilliant. I love that. That's awesome. Saxophone is entirely underrated.
Yes,
Yeah.
There might be one in Unbeatable.
there might be one. We just don't know.
I do like me some saxophone.
That's all. Okay, sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, you're good. I was just wrapping up. I actually wanted to bounce that to you. What is a soundtrack that particularly stands out to you?
Okay, I can't believe I didn't put this in my top shelf.
All right.
Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Yes.
Just like God, like that's like another soundtrack that's just like I listened to it a few years ago. I was like, wow, this is really good. And then while I was going through a bunch like last year, I was just like, this is really good. Whoa. And so it's just like that soundtrack just means a lot to me. Like there's just like it comes and does what it needs to do for 40 minutes, and then it's done, and it's just like it's the perfect length. It just has the perfect vibe. It's
Nice.
It's amazing.
Nice.
Like God, I can't think of like a game soundtrack that has impacted me more. I wonder if there's any other like. I mean, I feel like it goes for both of us, Vasily, but like we both love the Outer Wilds soundtrack.
We love the Outer Wilds soundtrack. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's soundtracks that can hold up by themselves outside of the game's context is incredible. You have if you have something that works both in context and out of context, you have made a wonderful, wonderful game soundtrack. You have the Hideki Namanuma's soundtracks on the fucking what's that like feel the power, feel the music in your soul. What the fuck? I don't even know what game that's from, but I love that song. I've never played that game. I've never seen footage of that game. I love that song.
Yeah, like I feel like Naganuma just like I wish he would just like release an album.
I know. Re-release the Sonic Rush soundtrack. Holy shit, please.
God.
Fuck.
Just like I wonder what would happen if just like he just made music like for himself rather than for games, but maybe that's what motivates him. I don't know. I'm not, of course, but yeah, like the Jet Set Radio Future soundtrack, like it was a big thing for me, I guess. Like growing up, like I remember just like playing that game when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and just like hearing music like this, and just as like a little kid, just being like, I've never heard music like this before. This is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I was gonna say, I really hope, Vasily, that you finish Echoes of the Eye, because like there's an amazing motif in there that is just so good.
I'll make it a point to finish it.
Yes, please.
By the end of summer, I will try to finish the DLC.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Nice.
yeah, those are definitely like the games that come to mind. Like, I'm sure there's more, but we have talked for like another hour. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I love doing this because you always get into that deep conversation. You just get lost in it. I mean, it's the best way to do it. It's always just fun to nerd out with people about music.
Yeah.
I could do it forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did 3 hours on my last one. So, I mean, it sucks to edit, though.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well,
It's a lot of
luck.
editing.
good
but-
luck.
Yeah.
Not my problem.
Nico, congratulations, you're nearing the ends.
That's part of the reason they're taking so long. No, I definitely love actually getting into it. I think Joey's going to have a much stricter schedule for me on Tuesday. I don't think I'll be able to get him into a 3-hour conversation, but I honestly just love having these kind of casual chats with people. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this in person as much as I did, because this natural communication is something like I rarely get to have my guest in the room with me, and one of those episodes didn't even make it to air because all the audio was corrupted.
Oh no. Fuck.
We were using like a dodgy interface and it just didn't come out.
Shit.
It sucks. We had to re-record that one. But yeah, I mean, just vibing off each other is always a really good time.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us, Kiko. That was a lot of fun. I was
Well,
able
thanks
to
for coming.
talk my head off.
Thanks for actually letting us use your place, Clara.
Of course. It was fun having people over and just talking.
Yeah. And if you guys have anything you want to plug real fast, just plug it in right now. And otherwise, I think we're set.
Play Unbeatable.
Play
That's all.
Unbeatable. Thank you for supporting our Bandcamp.
Hell yeah.
Please continue supporting our Bandcamp. We're still working on music. We promise.
Yeah, we just can't say too much.
Nope.
I mean, you heard one of the sort of little songwriting tool meetings we just had, so
Yeah.
nothing is done yet.
Nope.
It's
All right.
still going.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.